All right. Welcome in. If you don't mind, hit the heart button and the share and try to get me pushed out an algorithm, and hopefully we can have some good conversations today. Not very often I get to go live so much in a week, but coming off vacation, had some downtime, some free time, so I get to go live a little bit more. So, like I said, hit the like button and the share and try to get me pushed out an algorithm. And hopefully we'll be able to have some good conversations. Day before yesterday was really good. Yesterday was decent. So, let's see. Oh, I hope that TikTok's not doing that thing where it suppresses me and then I got to reset. I had to do that the last 2 times I went live. I've had to reset and do it again. So I'll give it a couple more minutes, and then obviously if it doesn't pick up, then I probably will have to reset. I wonder what causes that. You know, I never quite get TikTok. Something works really good, and then you got to reset it, and then actually just resetting it corrects it for some reason. Bro, you can believe in God and evolution. Yeah, you can believe in God and evolution. It just depends on which God do you believe in. Because my God said how he did it. You know, my God said that he created man on day 6. Evolution says that monkeys created man. So it's either God created man or monkeys created man. Or apes, however you want to distinguish it. So yeah, you can believe in God and evolution. But I would say you're not believing in the God of the Bible. You know, you're free to explain that. I'm not the arbiter of truth, but the Bible and evolution diametrically oppose each other. You cannot make these two things coincide with each other. One of them is wrong. And if you believe in evolution, then you're saying the Bible is wrong. And when I say evolution, I'm clearly talking about macroevolution, obviously. Believers, what's up, man?
No, I'm checking out your little post, man. I like that. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the bottom part of it. It says the flood was real. Pre-trib isn't biblical. That part right there. Evolution is false. Yeah, I need my glasses, man. But yeah. So you don't believe in the pre-trib? Are you mid-trib, post-trib? What are you?
Yeah, I don't like definitions, but giving the definition away in the thing. But yeah, it's considered the mid-trib viewpoint, but it's technically it's after the tribulation, but before the wrath. It's the middle of the 7 years, though. Yeah.
Oh, so that's when you believe he's coming back.
Yeah, that's when the Bible says he's coming back, or that's when the church is going to be raptured.
Yeah. So what part of the the context of the Bible, what part does the two witnesses play, man? Are they?
That's
are they in the
after.
first half, the second half, or the mid half, or where are they going to be at?
That's immediately after the rapture.
Okay, and
So-
for the first 3.5 years, they're going to testify, do this and do that, and then they're unalive. And then for the next 3.5 years, we're going to go through all these bowls and fork and all these things are going to happen.
So what?
So
Yeah. So what happens is no, it's not the beginning. So the 144,000 become the 144,000 when they see the church, the Christians get raptured. The Antichrist does the abomination of desolation in a 3.5 year mark. This is when the Jews, if you will, the 144,000, they realize now that they have believed in the wrong Messiah. They also, at the same time, they see Jesus come back in the clouds at the sound of an archangel and the blowing of a trumpet, and they see the Christians literally go up into the sky.
I hear,
So-
I know that. What I'm asking you is,
That's
is
when-
if you do the math, okay?
Mhm.
The reason why I'm asking you is, bro, the two witnesses, all right, they come into the world. Matter of fact, they are left behind. They missed the rapture intentionally. They are left behind because they need to fulfill prophecy and do these things for 1,260 days while they're in the world. And it's a promise to Abraham and for all those Christians that are also left behind, that they're going to have the opportunity to see these guys, do supernatural things and their testimony. And because of that, the Jews will be saved. A lot of them will repent. A lot of people will be saved and change their ways. They'll understand that, Jesus Christ was the Messiah and everything, especially when they're resurrected and they rise on the third day, right? So that
Well, it
happens.
says those who make it. Hold on, brother. You're saying, man. Hold on, brother. Hold on. You're saying a lot, man. You're saying a whole lot. So when you say that I know, but there's just certain things that you're saying that's not scripture, and then certain things you're alluding that may be that's not.
Ask me how
like
I
the
know.
Bible.
Ask me how I know.
The Bible says that. All right. How do you know?
Yeah, because I am one of these witnesses, man. Ask me how I know.
Okay. All right. Have a good day. Come on, guys. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. Steve Lobbs, what's up?
Howdy. Do you believe that Noah existed at the same time as dinosaurs, or is that like an AI error?
No. They dinosaurs were on the ark, and they existed at the same times as humans.
What evidence is there for that?
Well, outside of the Bible, I would say soft tissue and dinosaur fragment or dinosaur DNA. The fact that we're finding soft tissue and DNA in dinosaurs shows that they're not 65 million years old.
I see. So you just completely lack the ability to reckon with information.
Oh, so what part of what I just said is not me reckoning with it? Are you aware that they're finding soft tissue and DNA in dinosaurs?
Well, because one, I don't accept your understanding of science at all because you're an idiot, but you believe in something
your
that is
insults don't hurt
unprovable,
me. Can you
like the idea that
answer?
human
Stop.
beings existed at
Answer
same
the
time as
brother.
Noah.
You're not hurting
You
my
believe things that
feelings,
have
but
no
answer the
evidence.
questions.
You believe things that have
Answer
zero
it.
evidence.
Okay, so when I said soft tissue and DNA, and then now you just skipped that. So you got to answer questions directly, and I'll do you the same. So when I ask you again, you just refuse to answer it. Let's do it again. Since you said that I don't know science and I'm running from it, are you aware that they're finding soft tissue and DNA in dinosaurs?
Do you accept that they know how to carbon date that stuff? That they know how to
I can
actually...
answer your question if you want me
Yes, I hold on, I can, but no, I don't want you to answer it. I ask it to him. Now, let's see, because you said that I'm stupid and I don't know what I'm talking about, and then you literally
that's
said
accurate.
carbon dating. Yeah, okay, so carbon dating only goes out to 50,000 years. So since they're carbon dating
Holy shit,
dinosaurs,
man.
that
You
shows
should
that
kill
they're...
yourself,
All right,
dude.
get
You
off
are
my
too
stage.
stupid
Yeah,
for
get
this.
off my
You should kill
stage.
yourself.
Yeah, get off my stage. You say don't worry about it, brother. I promise you, you will make my clips. So after this live is over, I will download it. I'll put my funny little rewind sign, and then I'll show the actual science. Carbon-14 does not go out past 50,000 years. And the fact that you said they're carbon-14 testing dinosaurs, and the fact that they're finding carbon-14 in dinosaurs shows that they're not older than 50,000 years old. And you come up here and claim that I'm stupid, and you're the one that don't know what you're talking about. Outrageous.
Amen.
Jib, what's up, brother?
Hello. Yeah, sorry about that.
What you got?
The guy was a little bit hot-headed.
Yeah.
We can talk about what he was saying, man. I mean, the reason why they're finding soft tissue in dinosaurs is because they're being preserved in special places, like or being found in special places, right? Like maybe permafrost or marshes.
Well, that still couldn't get it out. We still know the degradation rates of collagen, even in the best preservation situations. So, first of all, the places that they're finding the dinosaur collagen and DNA is not in permafrost. But even if they was, it still couldn't get it to last 65 million years. We know what the degradation rates of collagen is, and in a frozen state, which is one of the best ways of preserving it, the half-life is, if I'm not mistaken, is like 130,000 years. So that doesn't get it out to 65 million.
But what about the not being permafrost? But there's another one. I think it is marshes or something like that. It's something like that where they found soft tissue from, or like 30,000-year-old humans. Or mammoths, but that's not.
Well,
that was in permafrost, not marsh.
Well, yeah, but I'm not talking about mammoths. I'm talking about 65 million year old according to y'all's model, and I'm talking about evolution. According to the evolutionary model, the dinosaurs, the latest or the last one to live was at least 65 million years ago, and we're finding soft tissue and DNA in them. So we know what the degradation rates are of collagen. That's the soft tissue that they're finding.
Can you tell me where they were found at?
Yeah, it's in the Morrison and Hills Creek formation, so it's actually like in the middle of the United States. There, it's
United States.
Yeah, it's not just one, brother. They do this. This has been replicated, so it's not just one site that they find these soft tissue. It's actually in many different dinosaur bones that they found it. So it's not like one specific location in the ground. It's different different locations.
Yeah, I would just suggest look at where those, not only modern day, what it is like geography-wise, but what it was at that time. Because I do believe that
I've looked at it, and there is no scientific explanation, and scientists know this too. I can take you to the papers. There is no scientific explanation to get soft tissue and DNA out to 65 million years.
All right. What else do you have? Evolution isn't real. What about that?
I believe in microevolution. I just obviously I don't have enough room to put everything up there, so I believe in microevolution. We never. Hold on, let me help this guy.
What do you mean
he
by
said we never got
microevolution?
genetic information change. Let's see this macro. So if you're microevolution would be a trait isolation that's either encouraged or discouraged. And then let me help this guy out real quick that's in the comments that say we never found dinosaur DNA. The name of the paper is Evidence of Proteins, Chromosomes, and Chemical Markers of DNA in Exquisitely Preserved Dinosaur Cartilage, 2020.
Shut up.
All right, so anyway, the name of the paper where they're finding DNA is The Evidence of Proteins, Chromosomes, and Chemical Markers of DNA in Exquisitely Preserved Dinosaur Cartilage. And yes, they are finding DNA.
So, you said what is you said doing microevolution, right?
Yeah, so microevolution would just be changes within the same kind of animal, like a trait isolation, either encouraged or discouraged that trait. Like, for example, I can take the wolf kind of animal and I can breed it down to a chihuahua, but there's no new information in that.
What about mutations in DNA that create new traits? And then those traits are favorable, so then they're selected for naturally. Right?
Yeah, and hold on just one. Caleb, don't straw man me. I did not say that it was that type of DNA. I said they're finding DNA. My statement that I've stated is unequivocally, without a doubt, provable fact. So then don't say that I said something that I didn't as far as sequenced. I never said they sequenced it. So and what you're doing is you're setting up a straw man, and then you're attacking that straw man to look like it said something I said, but I didn't say that. I never said they sequenced the DNA. I said they're finding DNA. Right? It's double helix and it's at least 6 base pairs in length. Right? That's DNA. I never said they sequenced it. So my claim stands. You don't have to add to it in an effort to try to make yourself look smarter and like I straw man my position. So they're finding DNA. We know what the half-life of DNA is. Half-life of DNA in dinosaur in any fossil is 500 years. And they're finding it in dinosaurs are supposed to be 65 million years old. So that literally proves they cannot be 65 million years old. So I don't mind you staying in the comments, but come on, man, don't straw man me. I apologize. I apologize, brother. Back to you, Jib.
Yeah, so random mutations can happen, and those can create new traits, right? It's completely new, and also scrambling. There's all kind of mutations that can happen inside the DNA to create new things, right?
Well, yeah, I believe in. Well, there we go. We got to get our definitions right. So I believe in mutations, right? And I believe that things can be scrambled up, but mutations and doublings and things. This is taking existing information and scrambling it up. That's not new DNA, right? It's not new code. It's existing code.
I'm saying there's never so the code it changes using mutation, right? But it changes so much over a period of time that it becomes a new animal. Is that what you can't believe? You can believe?
Yeah, but that's not testable and observable. We don't see that.
You don't see that.
Yeah.
So why do we share a bunch of chromosomes with
Well, we don't share.
Yeah,
we don't share them with them.
My bad.
We have chromosomes. They have chromosomes. That would imply common designer, not common ancestor. But to say that we share them is inaccurate. We don't share them.
We have the same, I guess they call it scar on our DNA with monkeys, and not monkeys, but apes. And
so you're talking about endogenous retroviruses. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what it sounds like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so endogenous retrovirus is the theory that I would lean towards, that it actually started within the human genome as a created function. Several different lines show that this was actually created in the genome as a function because, one, it's part of making placenta both in us and apes, and it's part of our immune system, both us and apes. So, again, that would prove common designer, not common ancestor.
So common design. So you think it was so you think that it came from one branch, or?
No, I think that
I'm
God.
having trouble. Where do the animals come from modern day? Do they come from other animals, or are they made and then they're boom? Here?
Yeah, God made the original kinds, and then you can get speciation through that. But speciation is, this like a rabbit. You might have different species of rabbits, but they're still rabbit, right? So you can have like the original cat kind, or let's use the canine, like the dog kind, right? We know that the Chihuahua came from the wolf. That's a microevolution. You can take the wolf kind of animal and you can select specific traits like short hair or short legs, and then out of those children you can only allow the ones with short hair and short legs to mate, and out of those children that have short hair and short legs you only allow them to mate with other ones that have short hair and short legs, and you're encouraging that trait that already exists. And eventually you can breed it down to a Chihuahua. I would agree with that. That's testable and observable. But what you can't do is take that same canine animal and breed it into a bird, because that's not within the genetic code.
But why don't we have enough mutations in code doesn't make code? It just alters it into something different. Right?
Well, that would, in your theory, that couldn't be true, because we went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, so genetic information gain happened literally quadrillions of times.
So the issue about that, right, is you said single-celled, right? I make a bunch of them, they'll have mutations, right? And they still reproduce. and then those
Yep, and we can
the
watch
same-
them reproduce up to 9 generations in a single day, and they never do anything other than our single-celled organisms.
Yeah, because we don't have enough time. That's the issue. I know
That's
you
not-
don't like, I know you don't like to hear it, but we don't have enough time.
Well, no, I know you don't like to accept it, but time is. This is not an X-Men movie, right? Evolution is not time-based; it's generational-based. Now,
Yes,
I do know
generations-
that time is a factor. Okay, but not. No, it don't. We can do it in bacteria. Now, see what you're doing is you're comparing it to humans that do take a long time for generational, because it takes 9 months for you to have a baby, and then it takes at least 15, 16 years for that baby to become sexually mature to be able to pass on the generation. Hold on. But we can do this in bacteria that can have up to 9 generations in a single day. So we can literally watch hundreds of years of evolution in one single day in bacteria.
But the issue is, it's not hundreds of years. It's just one day for the bacteria, right? They need thousands of years. Like
It's
we need
not-
thousands of years, right?
But you have a flaw, brother.
The rarity of the mutation that we need, right, is so rare
Mm-hmm.
that you need this much time.
No, it's not. You have at least 100 mutations in
mean? No,
between
it's not.
generations, and that's humans.
The
Brother,
rarity
brother,
of the
so-
mutation is
Okay, if you can't contend with the argument, I'm just going to move on. It's
I'm
not
trying
rare.
to.
Mutations happen all the time. No, you're not.
Not
Evolution is
all.
not time based. It's not. All right, man. Have a good day. Okay. Can't get it out. Evolution is not time based. It's generational based. Okay. It's not time based. So it's not like the problem is you evolutionists have watched X-Men movies, and in the very first part of X-Men it says every 2 million years evolution takes a leap forward, and you guys think that evolution is time based. It's not. It's generational based. So if you need one mutation to occur, then that's got to be passed on to its child. And I was going to show you that in 80,000 generations of humans, we went from an ape-type ancestor to a human-type ancestor in 80,000 generations. We've done this with bacteria. It's called the Linsky experiment, but I couldn't get to it because, no disrespect to you, but I just don't, I think you were just kind of hopping as fast as you could to different things. I prefer to try to stay on one thing at a time instead of the shotgun method. Matt, what's up, brother? Matt, you're on stage, man. You're muted up, so I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I don't have any disagreements with what you're saying. I hadn't been in the chat long or on your live long, but from what I gather, by what you've been talking about, yes, I completely agree. There's only 6,000 years of history. Dinosaurs were created the same day as all other land animals were. We existed alongside each other. They went extinct partially during the ones that weren't on the ark, went extinct during the flood, and over time we hunted the rest of them into extinction. Because the term
Sure.
dinosaur was invented in 1841. Beforehand, they were known as dragons, or referred to as dragons.
Okay.
So the myths and legends in history about dragons and knights fighting them, I believe they existed. That's a lot of meat
Yeah.
to feed a village if you back in medieval times. I mean, taking down a
Absolutely.
T-Rex or any other dinosaur that what we would call a dinosaur today, that's a lot of meat to feed your village.
Right. Well, brother, listen, man, I appreciate you coming up. I am looking for some ops, though, but I do appreciate you coming up and giving me the words of encouragement.
No problem.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
All right. Guys, I'm looking for some ops. I appreciate my Christians. I am trying out this thing where, I don't want my whole panel full of Christians that agree with me, obviously, because then I don't want, it's hard to get atheists to come on the panel when it's a whole panel full of Christians. So that's, I want some ops. Yep. Dragons, unicorns, goblins. I don't know. So dragons, yes, is in the Bible. Unicorns, that's just a rhinoceros. I don't think goblins are in the Bible. Disagree with the prompt, guys? Come on up. explain why I think pre-trib isn't biblical. Well, if you'd come up, it'd be a lot easier for me to have a conversation with you so I could explain it in case you had any questions. But long story short, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. So one thing you have to know going into end times eschatology, you have to understand the 70th week of Daniel, right? That's the 7-year time period that everybody's waiting on, right? So the Bible literally says in the book of Daniel, it says, he will make a covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week, he will cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease and make it desolate. So this is the abomination of desolation, right? And the Antichrist does that at the year and a half mark, or the 3.5 year mark. So it says in the middle of the week. So again, the 70th week of Daniel is a 7-year time period. And in the middle of the week, he does the abomination of desolation. You kind of have to know that going into it. I don't think any Christian disagrees with that. But if you go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul writes the church a letter in 1 Thessalonians. It's called First Thessalonians. He's writing a letter to the church of Thessalonica, and this is where he talks about the rapture. He says, the unenlivened in Christ go first. We which are alive and remain then will be caught up. Jesus comes back in the clouds at the sound of a trumpet and the voice of an archangel. So that's he tells them about the rapture. Well, evidently someone played a trick on the church and pretended to be Paul and forged a letter from Paul to the church. So Paul had to write the church a second letter. This is 2 Thessalonians. And Paul starts it off like this. He says, I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together unto him, that you not soon be shaken or mind or troubled in spirit, even if you receive a letter as from us, that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means. For that day, the day of Christ, the rapture, I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together unto him. That's the rapture. He said, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day cannot happen until a falling away happens first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And then the Bible goes on to, in that next couple verses, clearly talking about the Antichrist. So when he says that he says literally that the rapture cannot happen until two things has to happen first. One is a falling away from, and then secondly is the man of sin has to be revealed, the son of perdition. We know that he is revealed during the 3.5 year mark. So the pre-tribulation is not biblical right there. So the church will be here, or the Christians will be here for the tribulation for 3.5 years. At the 3.5 year mark, the Antichrist, he's going to be unaliving and persecuting the Christians very hard. And then at the 3.5 year mark, he's going to do the abomination of desolation. And then obviously after that, that's when the rapture comes. And then after that is going to be the wrath of God.
So it says
Tanya,
that
what's
God
up?
did not appoint us to wrath.
That's right.
So we shouldn't even be here. As soon as he's revealed, then we're out of here. So he gets revealed as soon as he enters that covenant, and then he breaks that covenant 3 years later.
Right. But so we gotta make sure that we get our definitions correct. So when you said that the Bible says we're not appointed unto wrath, I would absolutely agree with you 100%. We're not going to be here for the wrath. But the wrath and tribulation are not the same thing, and that's the problem that a lot of Christians, especially pre-trib people, they think that wrath and tribulation are the same thing, and they're not. I mean, the Bible clearly splits them up. Jesus said you will have tribulation, but you're not appointed unto wrath. So we got to make sure that we're not confusing tribulation with wrath, because tribulation is what the world does to the Christians. Wrath is what God does to the world.
Yeah, wrath is what God does to the world. There's also, are you rightly dividing your different dispensations whenever you look at what you're reading?
Well, I try to. I mean, I'm always up for a good conversation. If somebody, disagrees with me, then, that's why I do this. But I believe clearly I am, obviously.
Okay. I probably will, in the group, send you a book. I'm driving right now, so that's why I can't look it up. But it's called Rightly Divided, and it breaks down the different dispensations. And it breaks down how certain things are addressed to certain people. So basically, the Bible is written all for us, but not all to us.
I would agree with that.
So
yes, ma'am.
it breaks it down in different dispensations, and I'm not going to do this justice because I'm driving and I should have more of my facts straight. But There's
Oh, you're fine.
actually a comma in one of the scriptures, and that comma is supposed to insinuate the rapture.
Yeah, I could show you. So we know where the rapture is at because. So you got the day of the Lord and you got the day of Christ. Again, two separate days. Every time the day of the Lord is mentioned, it's something bad for or something bad for those individuals left here on the earth. And I can give you, it's literally has like 30 scriptures for it. It's really mentioned a whole lot. The day of the Lord is a time of God's gloom, wrath. It's when the high and mighty are brought low. I could go on and on and on. Every time the day of Christ is mentioned, it's something good for the Christians. It's our mercy seat judgment. It's the day we're raptured and so forth and so on. So again, we have to make sure that we're not confusing day of Christ with day of Lord. So the day of Christ is our rapture. The day of the Lord is going to be God's wrath. So
Right.
the Bible
I don't
says
disagree with that.
that. Right. So a lot of people, when they look, it says the day of the Lord comes like a thief in the night. That's not the rapture. That's the wrath.
Well,
And so, and
what
he even
Bible version are you using? Are you using
King James.
King James?
Yeah, King James.
A lot of things. King
You're breaking out.
can lead to a different interpretation of it.
Okay,
That's
so
okay, I'm in
now
a bad
you
area.
come back.
But yeah, King James.
Yeah. King James what?
I was saying King James is that's only what I use too, because some of the other versions have things
Yeah.
inserted that could lead to a different interpretation or meaning. So
Amen.
it sounds like we're on the same page with a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
except for that one evolution. So,
Sure.
yeah.
So I do a
Well, I'll get out of here, so
3-part
hopefully
study
you can
on
get
this.
some more Christians.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. I would encourage you to go to my channel. I also do this on YouTube. Also, I don't go live on YouTube, but I have my studies over there. I do a 3-part series, if you will, or a 3-part study on this very topic because there's so much involved. It talks about the sun and the moon going dark. We know that's the 6th seal. Everything before the 6th seal is described as tribulation. Everything after the 6th seal is described as wrath. And I go through it scripture by scripture. So if you need a little bit more answers, then give me a follow and go check that out.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I've got to look up. I'm currently enrolled in the Bible Doctrine Institute, so for my bachelor's in divinity. So I'll have to look up that book that I had to study and read, and send you that one too for what I'm talking about for the dispensations and the rapture and stuff like that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Carlos, what's up, man?
What's up, man? I just bored sitting on the live.
You're just bored and chilling out?
Yeah, I will say this though. I was reading the book of Genesis, like I'm rereading it, and I got to the end of the book and how Jacob is quoting off to his sons, like who would get this, who would get that. It's very odd to me how a Jew can read that and just not see the Messiah in that, or
Yeah.
like the Messiah to come.
Absolutely.
Because I'm
Well, Carlos, I do appreciate it, but I am looking for some ops right now, brother.
I feel you.
Brandon, what's up, man? Brandon. I barely can hear you. Do you got something in your, like a mic or something? Like a Bluetooth?
I'm tripping. That's my fault. I forgot I was connected.
Nah, I hear you. I hear you really good now. What you got, brother?
Brother, gospels contradict each other.
The Gospels, well, I'm not much of a contradiction guy, but I'll help you out as best I can. What do you got?
Luke 3:23 and Matthew 1:16. Matthew
Luke
1:16.
3:23
Yep.
and Matthew what? And Matthew what?
1:16.
4:16.
1:16.
All right, so I got Luke 3:23 and Matthew 4:16.
No, 1:16. 1:16.
1:16. Okay, I couldn't hear you. And what's the contradiction there?
Yeah, one of them says that Joseph's dad is Heli. The other one says his dad is like Jacob or something.
It says, and Jacob begot Joseph, the son of Mary, to whom was born Jesus is called Christ. In Luke 3:23, and Jesus himself began to be able 30 years of age, being spouse the son of Joseph, to which is the son of Heli. All right, so yeah, what this one is when you're looking at Jewish lineage, you have to understand. So a contradiction can't be both A and B at the same time in the same place. So I can show you different places in Jewish law to where if someone unalived, like if I have a brother, if I unalived and I did not have any children, by Jewish law, it was my brother's responsibility to take my wife and to give her seed, and the seed would take my inheritance. So you got the difference words between the son of and begot. So it's no different than saying like stepfather or adopted father today, right? So when the Bible says begot, that means that that individual actually is the biological father. And then when you see son of, then that could be stepfather or it could be a father, but it's not the direct lineage. You know what I mean? Like a stepfather or like a.
The common scholarly consensus is that it is a contradiction. So how do you know? Oh, that's represented by Jewish tradition.
Well, because we can see this in the Bible. When there was an instance in the Bible when one of the individuals unalived and it didn't have any children, and God told him to marry take the brother's wife and to give her seed, and he put his seed on the floor. You can see this in the book of Genesis, and God got mad and unalived that guy for doing
That's
that
crazy.
because
You think
he
that
did.
actually happened?
Yeah. Do you want to contend with the argument, or are you just kind of like, oh, now it's not a contradiction? So
It definitely is. I mean, how do you?
not if one says begot and the other. Okay, so tell me if we're following, because a contradiction both can't be A and B at the same time in the same location. One of them says it's the father or the son of, and the other one says begot. So I just explained that and how this could not be a contradiction, and you're still calling it a contradiction. So could you tell me where I'm wrong?
How do you know the Jewish tradition?
Because I know Jewish law. Because one of
From the story
brother,
of the
have a good day.
dude.
Have a good day. You don't want to listen. If you're coming up, guys, I don't mind contention. So I don't want people to think that I'm just going to kick people. And hold on, I'll get to you, Bill. I don't want people to think that I'm just going to kick you for disagreeing with me. We can have a contentious argument. I got no problem. But you have to deal with the argument. You can't just say nuh-uh, right? And then two, if you have a question and you're looking for truth, I don't mind. I'll try to answer it best I can. But you're just wanting to come up and disagree with it no matter what. That's not an argument. You got to contend with the argument that I gave you. One of them is begot, the other one is the son of. We see when the Pharisees tried to trap Jesus, they come and said, hey, there's 7 brothers married the wife. They had to marry her. It says that the first married her, didn't have any children. So then the second married her, didn't have any children. The third married her, and so forth and so on. So they asked Jesus, whose wife will she be in heaven? Because she knew all of them. They were all her husband. Right? They had to marry her by Jewish law. So if you don't understand the law, then if any one of them, like let's say the 7th brother would have given her a child, the child would have belonged technically to the first number one, the first husband, right? Because that's what they were trying to do, was trying to get her to have a child for his inheritance. That's what the law says. So if you wrote that down in a book, you could write it 2 different ways. You could say 7 begot the son. 7 begot him. Or you could say number 1 was the father of, because he was the father. It's not a biological father. So it's not a contradiction. All right, brother, what's up? How do you say your name? Billal?
Yeah, Bilal's fine. Hold on. Can you give me a minute? I'm still I'm getting my premises up.
Yeah, man. No, sure, no problem.
So,
Okay.
so unlike most people in this lab that I've seen, I'm going to actually address the prompt that evolution is
Okay.
false. And you,
Okay.
that's your claim that evolution is false.
Right. Well, I don't have
Correct.
I don't have enough room to put everything. Well, yeah, I don't have enough room to put everything up there. So I believe in microevolution, but everything outside of micro, I don't believe, like macro or chemical or cosmic. So I believe in micro.
So you believe in abiogenesis then, but you don't believe in
No.
current
I believe in
evolution that we see in
micro.
everyday life.
Yeah. I don't believe in abiogenesis. I believe in microevolution. That's just trait isolation, either encouraged or discouraged.
So you don't believe that we share DNA and we share a common ancestor with monkeys.
No, well, when you say share DNA, I would say that we have commonalities in DNA because it's the same code, right? That would prove common designer just as much as it would common ancestor, but I do not believe we have a universal common ancestor, no.
Okay, would you be able to agree with the premise that the scientific method is the only reliable tool that we have to determine like objective physical history?
Define scientific method.
So, first step is purpose. The second step is research. The hypothesis. The fourth is to
Okay.
experiment. The fifth is to analyze and then draw a conclusion based off the experimentation.
Yeah, so you come up with a theory,
Would you
you
agree with
test
that
your
premise?
theory. Yeah, so I would agree that you come up with a theory, you test your theory, and if your theory makes predictions, if those predictions come true, then yeah, you get to move forward. I would agree with that. It's observation, hypothesis, prediction, and then you examine the testing, and yeah, I would agree with that.
I can't hear you. Okay. My personal faith in like ancient text have thousands of like contradictory creation myths across cultures. So I'm just establishing that the scientific method can be the only objective way to
I'm agreeing with you on the scientific method.
second premise.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with
that
you.
multiple independent. Yes. Okay, that. And the second premise that multiple like independent. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right,
You,
is my connection?
you
good? I just
have
said it was
your.
bad. Can you hear me?
It says you're in the red, but
That
I
multiple
can hear you.
independent physical clocks converge and agree on a 4.5 billion year old Earth.
There's also multiple ones that don't.
Okay, and you're.
I lost you on that
Hold
one. I'm not catching what you're saying, brother.
Okay, hold on. You keep cutting out.
Yeah, your connection's in the
All right,
red.
is that better?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps. All right. So that my second premise is that multiple independent physical clocks converge on a 4.5 billion year old Earth. Can you agree with that statement?
Like what? Well, there's also multiple clocks that don't. Can you agree with that statement?
I can agree with the fact that uranium lead dating and zircon crystals, potassium argon dating all conclude that that the Earth would be 4.5 billion years old.
If you pick and choose certain things within the zircon, like for example, you have to assume that there was no lead present in the zircon, but we know that there's several factors that can introduce lead into it. Now, naturally, most of the time, your zircon crystal would exclude lead, but there are several circumstances, and it's if I'm not mistaken, potassium might be one of them. It's the 11th most abundant.
Yeah, we understand that
thing on the planet,
dating
and that
usually
can
don't involve, usually
that
involve
can
volcanic ash.
bring in lead. So you here's the problem with your your uranium to lead decay rates, right? You have to assume the parent material. You have to assume that no lead was in it when it was present. When they do this in labs, it has what they call common lead. So when they say that the zircon crystal excludes lead, this is normally it excludes a lot. It's lead resistant, but even in the labs they get lead. It's called common lead. So clearly it's not a foolproof thing that prevents lead from going into it. And if there's lead inside of it, you don't know that it all decayed from uranium. Two, when uranium decays into lead, it produces
We know that it
helium.
had, and it did. Well, just because it didn't, all we need though is just the simple fact that we know that lead or uranium does decay into lead, and we can see in lead that in the zircon crystals that it had decayed from.
Brother,
uranium.
but if there's lead in there and you crack the zircon crystal open, how do you know how much lead was in it to begin with compared to how much lead decayed from the uranium? And the answer is you don't. But if you want to, there is a way that you can measure it, because when when uranium decays into lead, it releases helium. And the amount of helium that's in the zircon crystals shows that how much decay has happened. And would you believe that it shows about 6,000 years worth of decay and no more? So if it's been hundreds of thousands or billions of years of decay, because uranium goes into the billions of years for the half-life, so if it's been decaying for billions of years, then the hydrogen the helium should have all leaked out of the zircon crystal. And the fact that they're still finding it in there shows that the decay is actually recent, not old.
Okay, look, I understand what you're trying to say, but the helium that we use isn't how we measure. That's not how we measure.
I know they just exclude that because it doesn't. I know they just exclude it because it doesn't fit their model. Anything that doesn't show billions of years, they literally just exclude it. Like for example, carbon-14 being found in dinosaur bones. Carbon-14 has a half-life of 500 and something, so it shouldn't be measurable after 50,000. So if it can't be measurable after 50,000, the fact that you're finding it in dinosaur bones literally shows that they're not millions of years old. And mainstream science just goes, we don't care about that. We're just going to exclude it because we don't care. So yeah, I would agree with your premise that there is some dating techniques that go out to millions of years. If you literally just exclude everything that doesn't agree with you, then yeah, I would agree with that. If I exclude everything that doesn't agree with me, then I'll come to the conclusion that I won't also.
Okay, but the lead that they're measuring comes from uranium in two different ways. From uranium-238 and uranium-235 with two different half-lives, of one being 4.5 billion years and the other being 704 million years.
Yes, and but the lead can still leach in and out. So the uranium is...
They track the ratio of lead-206 and lead-207 in a predictable curve over time.
But the lead can still, so if the uranium-238 goes into lead-206, there's additional lead-206 on the outside that can be washed in. So how do you know that the lead-206 came from the uranium decay? If it can be washed in and washed out, it's called leaching. If it can be brought into the crystal and or taken out of the crystal, then therefore your dating method, right, just by that one simple fact of leaching, it's not in a closed system. You can't use it. You can't reliably test the dates. And I can show you known examples of where you've had volcano eruptions, where you've had new lava forms as these zircon crystals are supposed to form. And like Mount St. Helens is one of them. And the zircon datings were way, way, way off. And the reason why they come up with an excuse and they say, well, these zircon crystals are really older. They just formed in a magma chamber that was deeper.
Okay, but that lead isn't lead 206, or it isn't lead. It's not lead 206 or 207. It's lead 204, which is the natural lead of this earth. Because lead has four isotopes: 204,
that's
206,
fine.
207, and 208.
And each one of those isotopes can be brought in.
If leaching happens, we can detect that it's not the lead, that it's not the lead that decayed from uranium. We can detect that it's lead natural to the earth.
Not if the leaching brings in the same type of lead.
It doesn't,
which is very plausible. How do you know
It's not
that? Where do you
possible.
get? Where are you getting that from? Where do you
Because
get that from?
because
It's not possible.
because zircon because it only happens. We only track the uranium we only track the decaying of what's it called?
Brother, I understand that. I can straw man your position. Here's your position. Your position is that, I might just mess the numbers up right off the top of my head, but uranium 238 decays into lead 206. Okay, it doesn't decay into lead 204. It decays into lead 206. So if we find lead 204, then we know that it didn't come from the decay. I would agree with you, but it can also leach in lead 206. So how do you know that the lead 206 was from the uranium decay and not leached in? Or if it can leach out, how do you know that that date is correct? Because some of the lead could have actually leached out.
Because it doesn't, and if it did,
But
then
it
you can
does.
measure it.
But it does. How can you measure it if it leaches out and it's gone?
It doesn't.
It's not a closed system. Uranium
that's
has
measured-
alpha particles coming off of it.
You're misunderstanding. The lead that would be outside of it is lead 204. It's not the same thing. It doesn't
Yes,
leach
oh
out.
my goodness.
You're claiming
All right, well,
what leaching is when you're claiming that when 204 comes into the crystal, and then you would somehow detect it as the lead that decays from uranium, but that doesn't happen. Because when you detect
you don't. There's no way for you to say. And I'm trying to be as generous as I can with you, but you are so factually inaccurate about this, brother. When you say it doesn't happen, you're going to have to substantiate that claim, because I can substantiate my claim with leaching. I can show you lab experiments where it does. I can show you that if they produce, if they have this specific potassium around, that it actually carries lead inside the crystal. I can show you these. Uranium shoots off alpha particles, obviously, because it's radioactive. The moment you put it in a zircon crystals, it shoots alpha particles, which are tiny bullets, which blows holes in the side of the lead, which allows
Do you want me to
leaching.
substantiate
So when
that
you
claim,
say that
then?
it can't
That it doesn't
happen, yes,
happen?
that it cannot happen. Yep, substantiate that claim.
Okay. Maybe that was when I said it can't happen. Technically, it can, but when we measure, we understand that it doesn't and that it hadn't. This is how we do.
How do you determine that it doesn't or it hasn't?
Through fission tracks from the uranium, through scars, through helium, and through the missing uranium.
Yep.
And the excess lead.
Okay, so what they
all come to the
Yeah, so
exact
what they do is
atomic balance. And if they hadn't,
Yeah, so what they do is
then
they try-
if the lead from the outside came in, then those four independent physical markers, they wouldn't sync. They wouldn't be the same.
All right. Yeah. So
They wouldn't align,
Some
sorry.
of what you said is yeah. So what they do is they actually look for a zircon crystal that's supposed to be inclusionless, meaning that if it has a crack or clearly they can determine it has a hole in it, then I would agree with that. They try to exclude that out to say that there could be no contamination. Unfortunately, though, if the zircon was grown in hot water rich with fluids, this can cause the leaching to come in and out without holes being presented in the zircon. Phosphorus. Lead can enter with phosphorus, and phosphorus is 11th most abundant element on the earth. And if lead can attach to phosphorus, then it can actually bring it into the zircon crystal again without it having to present any holes in it, brother.
Yes, it would though. It has. If you brought phosphorus into the crystal, it wouldn't have the same atomic balance, and you'd be able to detect that.
But it can leach in and out. So the phosphorus can bring in the lead, and then the phosphorus can leach out. There's no way for you to account for that.
Yes, the atomic balance accounts for that because lead 204 and lead 206 are different.
If it's brother, all right, so no disrespect to you, but I've already contended with that 3 times now. Please don't bring that up and show me that you can contend with the argument, because I've done said that if it's not the lead that it decays into, I understand that. If another lead, like if the uranium 238 decays into lead 206, then I understand that if they find lead 204 in there, then it had to come in from contamination. I understand that. So please don't say that again. I've done contended with that 3 times. Show me that you're listening. The lead 206 that's produced from the uranium 238, the lead 206 that's produced from the uranium 238, that can be leached in and out.
Okay, but like I said, when I addressed that before, like I said, when I said it can, when I corrected myself, I said that it can.
Yep.
Do you know?
I
what
know,
the-
yeah,
do
you
know
fought
the-
really hard, and then you said it can. I agree.
No, but I meant, and I rephrased my words. Do you know what the
I got
concordant
you.
test is then?
What's that?
It's when I said when uranium 238 decays into lead 206 and uranium 235 decays into 207. These are two completely independent decay chains, and then you come in. Okay, and then the crystal as a closed system, the age of 238 to lead 206 will exactly match the age calculated from the uranium 235 to the lead 207. That's the concordant date. We know
Yeah,
if
but
leaching
if
had
it can
happened or
leach
not.
in and out, no, you don't. There's no way for you to account for it, because if it leaks out, if it leaches in or out, then the amount that you go with is going to look like it's supposed to, because you're assuming. You have to assume that it's in a closed system.
If that happens, then it will artificially inflate the amount of lead 206 without affecting the lead 207.
You're assuming the apparent material. If you don't know how much apparent material is in there,
we know their half-lives. Therefore, we will know if the data
I know.
is
I understand. We know the half-life. I'm giving you the half-life, but you don't know how much uranium was in it to begin with to compare how much lead has decayed into. You don't. You're assuming that. Because, again, if it can leach in and out, which you already conceded, if it can leach in and out, then there's no way for you to say, oh, we know that there was this much uranium started with it, and so there you go. You don't know that because it can leach in and out.
Yes. Wait, so see, your claim is that you can't measure the initial amount of uranium that's inside.
There you go. Yep. You cannot. And the reason why is because leaching happens. And if material can be brought in or out, which you've already conceded that yes, it can, you do not know the parent material either to compare the dotted to.
Okay, hold on. Do you agree that you can measure the amount of lead?
It can leach in and out too.
Okay, but like I said, so we have the established half-lives, right? You agree?
Brother, the half-lives don't help you in this, because let me give you a scenario.
Because
okay?
that's how you know the amount.
No, but they don't. No, they don't. Okay, let me give you a scenario. This will help you out 100%. You and I walk into a room, okay? There is a candle burning, okay? And I ask you, hey man, when was the candle lit? We don't know when it was lit. We just walked into the room. So you and I do some empirical science. We go up and we measure the candle at the moment we walk into the room. It is 10 inches tall. We wait 1 hour and we measure it again and it's 9 inches tall. We wait another hour and it's 8 inches tall. We can do some science based off of this. We can determine the decay rate, the burn rate of the candle. Same decay rate like your lead 206 or your uranium into lead, right? That's the decay rate. It's 1 inch an hour. Okay? By that, when was it lit?
Repeat that?
We walk into a room together, okay? Mm-hmm. We see a candle that's on fire, and I ask you, hey man, when was the candle lit? You say, I don't know.
I would say I don't know.
Let's go do some science. So we measure the candle when we walk in. It's 10 inches tall. We wait 1 hour, it's 9 inches tall. We wait 2 hours, it's 8 inches tall. So the candle is decaying. The decay rate of the candle is burning at 1 inch an hour. That's the decay rate. We know the decay rate, it remains constant. When was it lit?
Well, I think that's just an incorrect analogy.
Great. So follow the incorrect analogy and show me that you can follow.
Well, you wouldn't be able to know because you don't have any. You can't say anything about the fire. Maybe you could say that the fire, based off of how much energy. Well, actually, technically, if you could measure the amount of energy that the fire has, but it doesn't have a specific decay rate. Fire doesn't, like the amount of.
Brother, I need you to. So I'm showing you in my make-believe scenario that the decay rate of this candle is constant. The reason that you don't know when it was lit is because you don't know the starting height of the candle. Now, if I gave you additional information and said, hey, I want you to know that this candle is 11 inches tall from the store, right? I bought it yesterday. I put it in there. Somebody lit it. I don't know who it was, but we know that it started off at 11 inches tall. By that, now you know the height of the candle. When we walked in, it was 10 inches tall. So by me just giving you that additional information, you knew automatically that it was lit 1 hour prior to us walking in there. Now, This is not a false analogy. This goes perfect. With the decay rates of uranium and lead, we know the decay rate. I will grant you that. That is constant. I grant you that. The problem that you have is you don't know the parent material. You don't know how tall the candle was, aka you don't know how much uranium was in it to begin with. And because it can leach in and out, that means you can add inches to the candle or you can take inches away from the candle. If you don't know the parent material to begin with, there's no way you can measure it. You're making an assumption. You have to make an assumption.
Okay.
Every radiometric dating has the same three fundamental assumptions.
Okay. You in the sense that we can't go back in time and physically measure the original uranium, you're correct. We can. But we don't have to. We don't need a time machine to measure the original amount of uranium.
Yeah, you do.
It's
you don't know how much. You don't know how much
recoverable.
decay. No, it's not. You don't know how much
recoverable from what is inside of the crystal now.
Okay, so if lead
What
can
aren't you
leach in and
understanding?
out, how would you know how much you're? Yeah,
Because-
I'm
okay.
the one that's not understanding.
Okay, wait. What is
It's
your
me.
contention? What is your contention with the Concordian test, the Concordia test?
Or what's the Concordian test? Help me. I don't know what that is.
I just explained it to you. I explained how U238, U238, and
Okay, so it's the same answer.
206
If you don't know how much was in there and it can leach in and out, there's no way you can tell me you know how old it is. And again,
No,
we
but
can
all
do
we need-
testable
all
and
we need are
observable
the
science to
half-life.
see that they get it wrong.
No, all we
How
need
do you-
though for this statement is the half-lives. If you can
How do
admit
you
that we
only
all-
need the half-lives?
Because, okay, let me explain. So, it's nice and simple. 238 decays into 206, and it has a half-life
Okay.
of 4.5 billion years. 235
Okay.
decays into 207 as the second clock, and it has a half-life
it.
of 704 million years, right?
Okay, I
And
give you the
these two
half-life. Grant
clocks
you that.
will go at different speeds, but they start at the exact same time when the crystal formed. Okay?
Okay.
No
So,
lead leached
are
in
they
or
comparing-
out, both.
How do you know that?
If no lead
You
leached,
don't. So now you're saying that
I'll
if no.
explain,
Okay,
I'll
if no
explain.
lead.
If no lead leached in or
Okay,
out,
if no lead.
both of the clocks will display the exact same age. We can reverse the
Mm-hmm.
clocks. That's concordant. If lead 206 leached in or out at any point in the past, you would able to look at both clocks and point to which one was broken based off of the fact that it doesn't match up with its half-life. So when scientists do get those crystals with lead that had leached in with lead 206, not lead 204.
So
they
if these
scrap
two
the
dates
data and
match,
they
you're
don't use
saying
it.
that. Yeah. So if these
That
two
we
dates
can
don't
reverse-
match, then they just get rid of it, right? So they
Yes,
just
we don't
they
use
just
the data
disregard
that-
everything that disagrees with them. Yeah.
No, that's not
You
what
just
I'm saying.
disregard
When-
everything that
when-
disagrees with you.
No, stop straw manning that. That's not what it's saying. We can understand that lead leached in if the data doesn't match what the half-lives are. It's as simple as that.
But that's exactly. I'm not strawmanning it. You're just saying what I'm saying. You're just saying it. I'm strawmanning. That's exactly what you're doing. If it doesn't
Okay,
match,
okay. Let's
and
say- let's
again,
say
we
you
can
can't-
see
okay,
known.
I'll make an
We can
analogy
see
for this.
known events.
I'll-
Hold on, wait a second, brother. We
I'll
can
make
see
an-
known events to where it doesn't work, and you're just claiming that long ago and far away we can tell that it's perfect
my
back
God.
then, but when we test and observe it today, it doesn't work.
It does. Okay. Today, if okay. What kind of analogy do I have to make for this? Okay, I'll give you an analogy. You're trying to measure the amount of how do I even make one for this? It's not even that. It's not that difficult of a concept. If you have something that you're trying to figure out and something interrupts that process, which is something you can't control, of course you would scrap that data. That's an uncontrollable. If lead 206, something you can't control, leaches in, it's an independent variable. If it leaches in or leaches out, you can't control that. But you understand that it messes with the data that you know to be true and that you admitted the half-lives to be true, that we understand those. And if
Yeah, but
What's it
again, if you don't know how much parent material is in there, you don't know how much the daughter decayed from it. You don't.
Okay.
And you're assuming
But
that
we
it,
do.
and you're also assuming that no, you don't. All right. All
Okay,
right.
let me explain then. Let me explain then.
I got you. Hold on. I
How-
will.
how we
I'll
understand
let you
it.
explain. I'm gonna let you get to. I'm gonna let you get your last word in here because I don't want to be disrespectful to you. But then after that, we'll let the individuals listening, because now we're just repeating the same thing over and over again. So I'll
Okay.
let you land your plane,
Okay, I'll make
and then
this
if you have
clear.
something else you want to go to, if you have
Okay,
something
I'll
else
make
after
this
that you
clear.
want to go to,
So-
we'll go to that. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So he claims that you can't know the original measure of uranium, and I think his reason for that was because you can't have what's it called, an exact amount and logical amount or exact amount of original lead. If you track back the half-lives of the lead that is inside, you can know how much uranium there was. It's just reverse half-lives. Okay? And his contention with that was you don't know the exact amount of original lead, the lead 206, because of leaching in and out. And I was like, okay, we have a way to check that. We do know how to check if it leached or not. And when it does leach, we don't use that data because it interrupts with what we know to be true. It interrupts the half-lives. It interrupts what we know. It interrupts how the two clocks would work, the two half-life clocks. So when we do have a crystal that had no leaching, we can understand that it had no leaching because the two clocks would align. One moving at 704 million years per half-life, and the other moving at 4.47 billion years per half-life. So we know how we know if leaching happened. Therefore, when we reverse the half-lives, we can know for sure how much uranium was inside of whatever sample that we have of the zircon crystal.
Why does
That's
the
my-
decay show the? I got you. So why does the helium inside show a young thousands years decay, not millions or billions?
We don't track it by the helium. The helium's irrelevant.
I know
Maybe
because
have
it
to look at
doesn't.
its mass.
The helium's not irrelevant, but you can't just exclude it because it doesn't fit. Somebody's restricted my live because it contains unoriginal. No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? 1 second. Somebody must have reported my page here. This is ridiculous.
What's going on?
Yeah, so you can't. Sorry, somebody reported my page or something like that. Anyway, yeah. So when it decays into helium, you can't just leave that part out and say, "Well, it doesn't fit our model, so we're just going to leave it out."
We're not just leaving it out, but helium isn't
literally what you
helium
just said.
isn't in the decay system. It's a byproduct.
I
It's
know,
literally
and if the
physical exhaust.
byproduct is measurable, yep. And if you can measure how much is there, because there should be a known measurable amount, right? Because the energy is not lost, right? So it goes into this helium. So then you should be able to measure it and determine, and that's what they do. So why does the helium show that it's only been decaying for about 6,000 years?
That doesn't. It's not what it shows. For every one lead that 206 that's found, they find exactly 8 helium atoms with it. And for every one lead 207 atom, they find 7 helium atoms. When one atom of uranium goes through the 14 steps of alpha and beta decay, it leads to from 238 to 206.
It's called
it creates
you have
8
to look.
atoms.
You can look it up. It's called the RATE project, RATE project, and it measured the helium retaining in zircon crystals. And again, it pointed to if the zircons were truly about 1.5 billion years old, much of the helium should have escaped. The fact that the helium has not escaped shows that it would be consistent with the 6,000-year-old decay, not 100 and some billion decay. And that's called the RATE project. But I did say that we would move on, so you can look at that for yourself if you'd like. But did you have another contention?
Yeah, I think I did. Let me go back to my document.
Oh, yo, I'm in the live. What's up, guys?
What's up, brother?
Okay. Actually, you said you believed in microevolution, but you didn't believe in macroevolution, correct?
I believe in you. You moved around there. I couldn't hardly hear you. I believe in micro, not macro. Yeah.
Okay. And why is that?
Because microevolution is testable and observable, and macro is all inferred.
How? Okay. Have you heard of Richard Lenski's long-term evolution experiment?
Yeah, it shows degradation.
No. So you've heard of how he tracked E. coli for 75,000 generations, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like up to 90 if I'm not mistaken now.
Yeah, a population evolved like the ability to metabolize citrate in an oxygen-rich environment.
Yeah, but
E.
it
coli
already had the
cannot do.
ability.
No, it
Well,
couldn't.
hold on. So hold on. So what it did, it could digest citrate. It just didn't do it anaerobically. So what happens is the transfer proteins. So you have transfer proteins that allow in the glucose or citrate, and then you have a quote unquote genetic mechanism that changes it from oxygen to no oxygen. Glucose, citrate, glucose, citrate. So in the presence of oxygen, it eats glucose. In the presence of without oxygen, then it eats citrate. This started eating citrate in an oxygenated environment. So it did it through degradation. It did not do it through genetic information gain. And Linsky's bacteria is losing their flagellum, so they're not evolving, they're quote unquote devolving.
Well, originally though, they couldn't metabolize citrate in the presence of oxygen.
I know that, but they could metabolize citrate. So when we say that it started eating, you didn't say this, but most people allude to that they started eating a new food source. No, they didn't. They could already had the ability. They already had the frameworks too. And what happened was you had a promoter gene where you had a duplication that put the ability that it already had under the promoter gene. Okay, so that's not new information. It's literally doing what it already had the ability to do, which is digest citrate.
But no. So you're saying that they did in fact have the proper transporter protein to bring citrate into the cell?
Yep.
I think you should just check the sources then, because
I have. They already had the ability. So you would have to conclude that if they ate citrate in an unoxygenated environment, then the transfer protein already existed, bro. I think you should check your source. It literally had to have happened, or they couldn't have eaten citrate before. And the normal wild E. coli bacteria that they started off with 100% had the ability to eat citrate. It just did it in an unoxygenated environment, which means that they had the transfer proteins to allow in citrate, man.
whether or not they could it anaerobically has nothing to do with if they could it aerobically.
I mean, it sounds like you just want to stick to this, but yeah, they did it through degradation, not information gain. So they did not evolve, quote unquote. It would be like me saying, hey, look, I've lost my hands, so now I'm immune to handcuffs. Look how much I've evolved.
What? Repeat that?
It did it through degradation, brother. It's losing information. These things are devolving. And because the genetic mechanism, if you will, that allows the transfer proteins that switch over from oxygen to glucose literally got stuck on citrate, does not mean that they're evolving. Yes, they do have the ability to eat citrate in an oxygenated environment now. But that, and when people say that they...
It's degradation, but the change alone
is
evolution.
That's the problem that I have is now if you're going to claim that degradation is evolution, then you have no standard. I have a standard. My standard would be genetic information gain. If you're claiming degradation now as part of evolution, then you have more of a religious viewpoint than I do, and you have no falsifiable viewpoint.
So your claim is that if it evolved to be able to, what's it called? If it evolved to be able to process citrate in an aerobic environment, it was degrading?
No, I'm saying for evolution to be true, you would have to have genetic information gain. You see K-Lab down there where he says evolution is just change of allele frequency change over time. This is literally what evolutionists do. They change the definitions in an effort to get wins so they don't have to show evidence. I'm not saying you personally, but the word evolution back in the day just meant change over time. And then obviously, so there is a difference between micro and macro. So if macro is true, you would have to see genetic information gain. And I think you and I would agree that if you went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human, genetic information gain happened quadrillions of times. So giving me the Linsky experiment, which is an example of degradation, is not evolution.
again,
That's losing information. If it continues to evolve like this, it'll go extinct.
No, it evolved the ability to process citrate in an oxygenated environment rather than just anaerobically.
Yeah.
And as we know,
Sure.
anaerobic
And if I
process-
cut off my hands, I've evolved the ability to resist handcuffs.
That's not the same claim.
It
goes
is.
from only being
It's
able to-
degrading
it goes from
information.
It goes from only being able to process citrate in an anaerobic environment to being able to process
How did it
in
do
both
it?
an anaerobic and
And how did it do it? Did it do it through did it face a new problem and then evolve by gaining information to face this new problem, or did it degrade, meaning it lost information and this is the reason why it now has this new ability?
No, it was given, I'm pretty sure it was glucose that also had high levels of citrate.
Yes,
sure that
I
was-
understand that. I know. I'm asking you how it happened, because it did not gain a quote unquote. You're saying that it gained the ability to eat citrate in an oxygenated environment. With the way you're phrasing that, I would agree. But it already had the ability and the mechanism to digest citrate, and it did it through degradation.
Okay, so
it's
that's
kind
like
of
saying-
stuck
hold on.
now.
Okay, hold on. That's like saying
It didn't evolve.
That's like saying humans could only use glycolysis in the Krebs cycle to produce ATP and to process glucose, but then developed the ability to use the although this isn't technically true because we had all at the same time, but then developed the ability to use the electron transport chain, which allowed for to create 30 ATP. I somehow degraded.
Right. But the way you're saying developed, it did not quote unquote develop anything. It lost information. And by losing the information, a side effect
information
of
did it
that,
lose?
just like I keep bringing, it's devolving. It lost the whatever
In what
I
way?
forget the technical names, brother. It's
still
losing
able
its
to
flagellum
anaerobically
for one.
process.
Yes, but it does it. It's less fit. Now, when the paper says that it's more fit in this one specific environment, yes, because they have to spoon feed these things to keep them alive. But if you put them back into the normal wild E. coli bacteria, clearly they're not. They're losing there's whole different papers about the things that they're giving up in this environment because they're putting oscillators and spoon fed. So they're degrading.
Okay, but so you don't think of evolution as mutations to then
I've
Fit for
defined it now
survival.
several times, brother. Genetic information gain, losing, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but it makes perfect sense. If I cut off both my arms, it would be like me saying I'm evolving to resist handcuffs. That's not evolution, but that's what they're doing with this Linsky experiment. They're showing you degradation and then saying in this one very specific line right here, it's evolving. That would be the same as me losing my arms and saying that I am now immune to handcuffs. Look how much I've evolved.
but it's not though because
But it is.
you're making it sound like they lost so much more than they gained. Sure,
They did. They didn't gain anything.
Yes, they did.
Okay. All right. Well, we've been back and forth on this now, so you're not an uneducated guy. I do appreciate you you coming up.
Hold on. Back to so before this is an example of one of the things they sort of lost that you're blowing up. So they did some species did lose or some of the populations did lose ribose metabolism, for example. So instead, before the mutation, bacteria could eat both glucose and ribose. But after the mutation, bacteria ate glucose much faster through aerobic respiration, like through aerobic processing, but they could no longer eat
Yep.
ribose. Sure, but like since the flask that they were being fed had abundant glucose, the ribose's ability was completely irrelevant to survival. And the fact that they can now metabolize and use glucose makes it
Brother, they can't.
makes it so that
I know. We're just now going back. We're going back in circles. You can't keep evolving by losing all your information. If this bacteria continues to evolve the way that it is, it's going to go extinct.
that's not true.
That's
You can't, like you,
it
you have
is
no, you have
true.
no
It's
grounds
losing
to make that
information.
statement.
All right.
You have
Yes,
no
I do.
grounds
It's
to make
losing
that
its
statement.
flagellum. Yes, I do. I've already mentioned it. I'm not going to do it again. I'm sorry that you can't follow now, but they're losing their flagellum. These things can't even swim hardly anymore. They have to be spoon-fed inside of a lab now because if you put them back outside in a petri dish, they're going to get outbred because they can't move. You literally have to spoon feed these things inside of a flask because it oscillates. And because they wasn't using their flagellum to swim and go food, that's degrading. Yes, they are, brother. I don't think you've read this paper, evidently, and you're just wanting to claim all this evolution happened. And it's not. It's losing information. It is degrading. It's not gaining. If you don't know that, I'm sorry. Go read the paper.
It did both. I just explained to you
No.
how.
Okay. Listen, brother, like I said, I want to leave this cordially because I think you've been fair up to this point, but I think you're just grasping at straws now to try to hang on to this when it's clear degradation. Clear. The paper's outright. They're losing their flagellum. They lost the ability to digest the food that you just mentioned. I'm sorry, I'm starting to stick on myself now. But we've gone as far as we can go. I think that you have been fair. You're not an uneducated guy on this. I think you're trying to now fight for degradation as being part of evolution. But you have been cordial for the most part, and I don't mind a little back and forth contention, obviously. So with that being said, the reason why I do this is because, one, I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians, and two, if they're not saved, I want to try to get them saved. So my last question for you
Hold on.
is, what do you know about Christ?
I've read Genesis somewhat, like I think a good half of Genesis. I think I'm pretty knowledgeable, sort of. I've watched plenty of debates, plenty of videos. I've listened to William Lane Craig, Cliff, his son, plenty of people. I have good friends that are Christians, also debaters. But hold on. I have a quick question for you. It's an analogy, regarding this, because when you say that this bacteria is losing, I'll give you an example. So if you put a cheetah in a cage and feed it just meat, it will lose its sprinting muscles over generations. That's not degrading. It's adaptation to a new environment.
That's literally the definition. Yes, it is.
It's adaptation. If they don't need that anymore, they don't use it anymore. That is what evolution. Okay. I understand that they did lose something. I understand that, but they adapted to the new environment by getting rid of something that they didn't need anymore. The bacteria in that environment did not need their flagella anymore because they were being.
So
fed
you see how
glucose.
you did.
I understand. Hold on. I understand
got
that
you.
if they were thrown back into the wild, that they wouldn't be able to survive. But that was because they had adapted to a new environment through evolution.
Okay, so that's your thing right there. Evolution's degradation. And I appreciate you saying now that you understand that they did start losing something. I wish you would, just like earlier when we went through the whole.
I literally gave you the example of ribose. They lost the ability to metabolize ribose.
Yeah, I know. But the part about the zircon crystals took us forever to admit leaching, and now we're saying that yes, they are losing. Degradation cannot be part of evolution, and I'm going to show you why. Because if you say that degradation is now part of evolution, then you do not have a falsifiable viewpoint, right? Because let's say I show you.
Okay. Well, you can continue, but I disagree with what your what's your
falsified? What could I show you? What could I show you that would show you that evolution is not true? What example could I give you? Because if degradation is part of it, what you're going to, if I show you...
I disagree that it's degradation. I simply disagree. I don't think that a cheetah, if it's put in an environment...
Now we're doing yes, no. Now we're doing yes, no. Yes, it lost stuff, and now it's not degradation.
Okay, answer. I never claimed that it was.
I did answer it.
okay.
I said that's the definition of degradation. I did answer it, but I'll answer it again.
Okay, then
You
we-
said,
okay,
is
then
it
we just
losing? Yes,
disagree.
it's degrading.
Okay, then we disagree on our definitions then, because I think that the cheetah, if it's put in an environment where it doesn't need its high speed sprinting muscles and over generations adapts to that, doesn't mean that it. Okay, humans. Did humans degrade? Do you disagree with that?
If
Humans
they do,
aren't as,
if humans
aren't as good hunters as we
if they
used to
do
be.
degrade, that's not. Yeah. So
Humans
there's
used to be
so there's
Neanderthals were better hunters
degradation.
than we were. That's not.
Yes,
that's not
and cancer
degradation,
rates
though.
are exploding.
We
Yeah, humans are
adapted.
degrading.
We
Brother,
adapted to not.
What's
being
your
able to- oh my.
what's your falsifiable viewpoint? Give me the method that you would use to say that evolution is not true. I don't think you have one. Give me one.
The evolution to say that.
Yep. What's your
How would I prove that?
falsifiable viewpoint for evolution? Yeah, what evidence would you use to determine that evolution's not true? Let me give you an example. I have a falsifiable viewpoint, right? I say for evolution to be true, clearly I need to see genetic information gain, and then I defined what that is. And if I see that, then evolution would be true, right? And I'm talking about
I think
macroevolution.
Okay. Then I believe that we have different.
That's great.
What's it
Give
called?
me what you use to falsify evolution. What's your experiment? What's your standard?
What would I need to disprove it or
Yep.
prove it?
Brother, what's your standard when you're judging something to be evolution? I know you don't have one. See, I have one.
Okay. That they adapt to a different environment based off of what the environment.
That's proving
does to them.
evolution. What's your standard for disproving evolution?
I guess then the opposite. What is? I don't understand. Okay, give me your example again, and I'll phrase mine.
So let me show you. Let me show you. I don't want this to sound contentious, but listen, this is the problem that you got. I want you to really pay attention. I don't want you to take this as a jab, but this is the what I get with evolutionists. Okay, if I show you coelacanth, right? When evolutionists saw coelacanth in the original fossil record, they didn't know that it was still alive. They saw it. They said, "Wow, this is one of the original load fin fish. This is proof of evolution." Right? Then when we saw it alive today and that it has not changed at all, they said, wow, evolution got it to where it's at and it did not need to evolve. So here's my point. When you thought that coelacanth had genetic information gain, meaning that it went from a non-load fin fish to a load fin fish, genetic information gain, you said that's evolution. If that was true, I would agree with you. That's genetic information gain. If I show you the picture that it hasn't changed, your conclusion is evolution got it to where it's at. It don't need to change. And if it starts to degrade now, meaning that they're getting smaller, maybe their load fins are shrinking up, they're losing information, you go, wow, look, evolution.
Yeah, because,
It's an
hold on.
analogy, brother.
Okay,
I just need you
let
to
me-
I just need you to find it. Follow it, right?
Sure.
You see how you don't have every scenario that you saw? If it changes, you say evolution. If it stays the same, you say evolution. If it degrades, you say evolution. You do not have a falsifiable viewpoint. That is a religion.
Well, no, religion is defined by believing in a what's it called? A certain
A deity,
first of
yeah,
all.
and that's
But-
that your deity is time. I don't want to go off into that, but you add attributes to time that only a deity could do, like change one animal from doing into another kind of animal.
Okay.
But I don't want to
If-
get off
if
into that
I
right
s-
now.
okay,
Give
let
me
me just
your
give you-
give me your standard.
Okay, if something hadn't changed, I wouldn't say that's evolution because it hadn't evolved. Okay, your definition.
Do you believe that evolution got
is
it there?
different than mine.
Do you believe that evolution got it there?
Yes, to that point that it was in time.
That-
yes,
That's my. There you
sure.
go. That's my point. Yeah, okay, so now we see that if you see something, you believe evolution got it there. What about now? If it's degrading, you believe that's still evolution, right?
Your claim for degradation is simply adaptation. Once again, let me explain this simply. Like the cheetah analogy is as good as it gets.
I do not need you to explain the same thing you've already explained. I'm going to ask you now for the third time, and if you can't answer it, that's fine. Just say you can't answer it. Give me your standard that would falsify your viewpoint. If you like science, you understand that we do this all the time. I'm not claiming I'm a scientist, but I do this. I have a falsifiable viewpoint, genetic information gain. So give me your standard that would show you that evolution is not true, or just admit that it's a religious viewpoint. And there's nothing that would say that, there's no proof that anyone could show you that this is not evolution. Please give me your standard.
Okay.
You don't? Are you looking it up? Are you Googling it? I mean, it's your standard. You should.
No, I'm by myself. I'm thinking.
Fair.
Like
Okay.
how
fair.
it would be.
Thank you for the support, guys. I really appreciate the stickers, even if they're not all for me or whatever. I do appreciate the support and the people watching. Thank you.
Okay. Let me think. Okay. So I'm thinking. I'm thinking, if we have, this is one of the foundations of evolution. If we have a specific gene, right,
Mm-hmm.
and we look at it across different species, if we weren't able to build like a tree, like a connection, then I believe that we wouldn't be able to say evolution is true. Oh my god, I'm not like.
Okay, that is a standard. I think that is a ridiculous standard it's not reasonable because they literally just draw lines on papers. Like, for example, comparative DNA, right? So you got nuclear DNA and then you got mitochondrial DNA, lineage DNA. Our lineage DNA goes to mitochondrial Eve, which is a person, a human. Then, therefore, you could say that God wrote the genetic code. If he wrote the code, then why would he not use the same DNA that builds the same structures that some of us animals have, just like us? Like an ape has a hand with 5 fingers, 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. God doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. He uses the same code. Just like we do in Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, they both have millions of lines of code that are identical because the individual designing them use the same code.
Okay.
So when God uses the same code,
but just because it doesn't that doesn't make it contingent on the fact that there was something that made it. Okay, maybe it's logical that it could be, but it doesn't make it.
that's
It's not even logical that it could be. But it's like,
I understand that. I don't want to have a side debate on DNA. I understand that. My point was to show you that your standard that you come up with now is the standard's already there. Like, this could be common designer, and you literally just admitted that it could be common designer. But you said if we couldn't draw these distinctions in between animals, right? When they showed the genetic tree.
genes.
Well, the reason they do that, I just showed you, and you just conceded that could be common designer. So by
I'm an
default,
agnostic in the
that
sense
should.
I believe that could be. No. In the
Right,
sense
so that should-
like, I'm personally an agnostic, but that doesn't make it any more likely that it is. The fact that it could be.
There you go. So that's
could be
my.
an
So
opinionation.
now you actually don't have a standard, because now your standard could or could not be, and it's just left up to a choice. It's not an objective standard.
it's
It's
left
just
up-
how you feel.
Well, it's left up to evidence. What convinces you? You asked me what my standard was for evolution.
Fair enough.
You have a different
Yeah,
standard
and you
than I
gave it
do.
to me. I think that,
you have a different
and I just
standard.
told you I think that's kind of a ridiculous standard, but okay.
Yeah. I think if I gave it more actual like time and thought into what makes evolution true versus false, I could create a better falsifiable standard. But
Fair.
I mean, no, it's not an objective one. But yeah, hold on. I might. This is out, and I'm at 4%. This kind of sucks.
I got you. Well, listen, dude, give me a follow, man, and next time we talk, I'd like to be able to share Christ with you. Like I said, you're not an uneducated guy, so I've enjoyed the conversation. We've had some back and forth, and that doesn't hurt my feelings none. But I've enjoyed it.
Okay, but my last and final thought though is that I think that there is no real difference. Like when you say degradation versus gaining, I think degradation and evolution are both one and the same under the term adaptation. I think that
I
even if
understand
something
you
loses
think
something
that.
to adapt, even if something loses something
But
to adapt to an environment, that doesn't mean it's degrading. It just means it's adapting. Like the cheetah it loses
Sure.
the muscle, but it doesn't need the muscle anymore.
Fair, brother, but we
bacteria
could not
loses the
have went
flagella.
from a single celled organism to a fully functional human by quote unquote adapting by losing all of our information. It couldn't have happened. So my
sure, but
point
I can
is
grant
that
that.
even if you conclude that, then we don't need to be given examples of degradation to say that evolution happened. You're showing me an example of loss and then claiming that gain happened. It doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm not. I'm giving you an example of adaptation, and just because
You just changing the word, same thing.
No, it's not. That's my literal point. That I don't think it is.
Okay, all right.
But
I'm gonna let
okay,
you get the
but-
last word, and then I am
Yeah,
gonna move
yeah.
on. Go ahead and land your plane.
final point. Adaptation, whether it seems like something loses or gains, it's simply adapting to an environment. And yeah, like the bacteria didn't eat its flagella anymore. The cheetah didn't eat its highest speed muscles anymore. Doesn't mean that it's degrading, it just means that it doesn't need it anymore. That's why it loses it. That's it. I'll give you drop a follow. I'll probably be back another time, whenever.
Sure,
good
man.
talking to you, man.
Yeah, you too, brother. Have a good one. God bless.
You too, man.
All right. It was a good conversation. Wasn't a bad conversation at all. I mean, obviously, we're going to disagree. I think that he says that is losing his flagellum is not degrading. I think that I'll let you guys in the comments decide on your own. But clearly, that's losing information. Justin Willer, what's up, man?
Wait, so from my understanding of the last conversation, your standard of evolution is gaining genetic information, right?
Yeah. So my falsifiable standard would be genetic information gain. Genetic because you got to be able to pass it on to your children. New information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, new DNA, and obviously they have to be gained from something that wasn't there before.
So, and I also understand that you don't believe that we evolved from a singular cell organism.
Right.
Well, I really have no reason to debate you then. I thought you were saying evolution in a adaptation way is false.
Now I believe in microevolution.
All right. Well, shucks.
Well, yeah, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate you coming up, brother. All right. B, what's up?
Hey, I have watched you before, so I know that you believe in microevolution, and your big thing is, like the last person said, the addition of genetic information. So I just had a quick question. Is the exchange of genetic information not enough? Like, for example, crossover during meiosis, is that not enough? Like when genetic materials,
Right, like horse.
because it is. I mean, if one part of the end of a chromosome is now put onto the other, you wouldn't consider that gaining.
No, because in humans that causes a problem. That causes like Down syndrome, right? So that's duplicated information.
No.
Now,
No, crossover. That's not what I'm referring to. Crossover is just like a regular. It happens during meiosis, and it's like happens in our gametes.
you're talking about yeah. So okay, you're talking about like horizontal gene transfer, and you're talking about germ cell.
No, so
I forget the name of it.
I don't know if that's a different term for it. That's not what we use in my line of work. But what I'm referring to is like our SMEX cells before
Yeah.
they even meet to fertilize. As they're replicating, they can undergo, because they're all like haploid cells, like half of the information.
Yeah.
But as they're undergoing meiosis, which is like similar to mitosis, like the regular autosomal cell division.
Yeah, that to answer your question directly, that wouldn't be genetic information gain, because when we take in those things, then you would have to prove that they become part of our genome. Certain things like we can go into endogenous retroviruses if you'd like, but you would have to prove that if they got into us. And most of the time, when we see something that goes into the germline, which goes in, like they did this with rabbits, right? They took it and they put it into the SMEX organs of the glow in the dark from the jellyfish, right? They took the gene that caused the jellyfish to glow in the dark under black light, and they inserted that into the germline of the rabbit. And sure enough, it became part of the rabbit's genome. But it only became part of their genome for about 2 or 3 generations. And one, that was humans directly inserting that. And 2, it didn't last. Eventually it fell out of the genome through just normal breeding. The bodies, quote unquote, didn't accept it. So
I mean, yeah, I'm
I think
interested.
I answered your question.
Yes. I have a follow-up question to that. I don't know if I want to. I mean, to address the previous though, what about that? Like, why was that significant to you that it dropped out of the genome? Because, I mean, it can be a non-coding part of the rabbit's genome, but obviously, like a jellyfish glowing is not going to do any good for
Right.
the
So if I
rabbit's
understood your question correctly, is that would I accept new information if another organism was able to get its DNA inside of us and we took it on as part of our genome and it became part of us, like an endogenous retrovirus, like the way that they claim that, would that be genetic information gain? That's the way that I took it. And if we can insert it, but we show that one part of it would be genetic, so you have to be able to pass it on to your children. And clearly, if it falls out of the generations after 2 or 3 generations, then that wouldn't count as evolution because it only lasts for a couple of generations.
Right, fallout is an interesting term though, because I mean, when we're talking about the 2 haploid genomes that are being transferred into the offspring, the entire genome of that like luminescent rabbit or whatever obviously isn't going to get transferred. Like that's just something that happens from generation to generation, whether or not. I'm assuming that was like a short-term study, so I wouldn't say that like it was a matter of like evolution being like a non-use part of the genome, so it fell out for that reason. I would actually, if it was short-term, just say that, you know, them being haploid cells, like that just happens with so much of the genome, you lose a lot of parts of it. For example, I mean, maybe my great-grandpa had brown eyes, but me and all my siblings have blue eyes, so.
Yeah, but it still goes back to the original point, though. If it doesn't stay in the genome, then clearly that's not evolution.
Okay. Why? Sorry, I'm trying to. You can move on if I'm being like redundant here.
No,
or if you
you're
have, like,
fine.
better
You're
things
fine.
to do.
No,
I
you're
don't know.
fine.
I'm literally just picking your brain. So let me know if I'm being like annoying. But
Nope. This is a conversation. I prefer these type of conversations.
so for it to be evolution to you, it has to be like passed on throughout generations. Is there a certain amount of time that it needs to be, or does it need to be advantageous in a way, or like how would you define?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, if it falls out of a generation, and fallout's not the scientific term, but obviously, if the information, let's say evolution is true and genetic information gain happens, well, even if it was true, but it happens, it wouldn't do any good if it only happened for 2 generations. That's clearly not enough for evolution to happen, right?
Like on large
You
scale.
can't
Okay.
go, Yeah, you can't go from evolution says that reptiles produce birds eventually. You can't go from a reptile to a bird by losing all of the advantageous traits that you gained towards the bird in a couple of generations. That would clearly wouldn't work, right?
Well, in a couple of generations, but why couldn't a reptile become a bird just by losing traits? Well, when we say losing traits, like we're talking about specific traits, like they're obviously like the genome is actually I don't know anything about a reptile or a bird genome specifically how long it is, but like even if the genome is the same between the two, but they're losing like specific traits about it, like why wouldn't that be evolution? It is evolving to a different organism. My dog's starting to whine because he's hearing yours.
Somebody's at my door. My daughter's letting them out. I apologize, but yeah. So if it's genetic information gain, again, we need to see it pass more generations. If it's losing information, then I understand. Just like the last case, people are going to claim degradation as part of evolution, but then you have to understand that now you have an unfalsifiable viewpoint. Right? Like I can give you example after example after example of the most famous examples of evolution, like bacteria becoming resistant to antibiotics, the E. coli experiment that we just went over. Evolutionists always bring examples of genetic information loss and then claim that long ago and far away we had all of this gain. So I always require genetic information gained that's testable and observable and not inferred. So what they'll do is they'll use comparative and...
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Oh, I was
You're fine.
I was gonna ask what you meant by long ago and far away it was gained. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you believe in a universal common ancestor, right, meaning that all humans eventually came from a single-celled organism, then genetic information gain, the way I defined it earlier, has literally happened quadrillions of times. And so we could not have went from a single-celled organism to a fully functional human by degrading, by losing information. That's just a simple math problem, right? Teacher, how did we get here? Well, little Johnny, we all started off as a single-celled organism, and then we lost it all. And that's why we're here. Clearly, that wouldn't work.
Okay, so is it the fact that, okay, let me ask you something. So if there was, I know you said that microevolution is something that you do accept, but if it was something like having a common ancestor to apes, would you accept that? Like, or generally anything like with a full like genome that is the size of a human genome, would you accept that to be like a common ancestor of humans? Is it just the fact that there's like single cell versus
so that would be
today?
No, that would be macroevolution. I believe that the animals are created in their original kinds. So you have the dog kind, the cat kind, the cow kind. You can get a lot of variation within that kind, right? Like you can have cheetahs, you can have lions, you can have tigers in the cat kind. But they had an original ancestor, and their original ancestor was probably a cat, right? It wasn't a dog, obviously. So I agree in microevolution can cause speciation of the same kinds of animals, if you will. But if we have a universal common, even if we went back to an ape, that would be macroevolution. So if we went back to an ape ancestor, that would be macroevolution, and I would concede.
Okay. I'm interested to pick on that further, but to be honest, as far as the coming from single-celled organisms, I don't know that I have like a full argument for that, so I'm going to put that out there just in case you want to move on. I would like to pick on the ape thing, and also I just want to put out there, as far as gene mutations, I believe that there is like an additional, like you can have an addition of a nucleotide in a sequence. Is that something you've looked into? Because I don't want to say that as fact. I feel like I learned that in like my like population genetics class like 5 years ago, so I don't want to say that as
So
law.
I'm not
I
a
know that-
huge genetic DNA guy, because this obviously there's entire scientific fields devoted to this. So I think I know enough to argue the creationist viewpoint. But if you start getting off too much into the weeds, I'm going to concede that I clearly am. I'm not your man for that kind of conversation because I'm not that versed in it.
Okay, maybe I'll just look into that further and maybe follow up later, because that's not something I can say as law right now, that there is like an addition nucleotide mutation. But I do know that like there is like a shift mutation and a deletion mutation and stuff like that. And like we talked about crossover, so like all of the different types of mixing it up. But you're interested in like the addition thing. So I'm going to follow up on that. But as far as having an ancestor with apes, have you like researched common ancestry with apes at all, or like what is your knowledge in that?
I know what they say, but we can look at things like mitochondrial DNA and our mitochondrial DNA. Are you familiar with mitochondrial Eve?
So when you say mitochondria, and I do DNA analysis, so I do mitochondrial DNA analysis. It is maternally inherited. When you say mitochondrial Eve, I as far as I know, as a forensic analyst, there's not, anything that is the exact same in our mitochondrial DNA, and that has been that way since Eve. Like I don't believe that maternal DNA inherited is across the board, like has some similarity whatsoever. It is just maternally inherited at this point. Kind of like it's really similar to DNA in its sequence.
Right. So my point was is that every person alive today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to a single female that lived in Africa.
That's
So
what I'm saying.
my point is that
What do you mean? What do you mean they can trace it? Like what is it? Is it a sequence?
they look at it through. Yeah. So mitochondrial DNA has its own. It's separate from our DNA, if you will, and it's given from your mother.
Nuclear DNA.
Yeah, it's different than nuclear DNA. It has its own lineage, if you will. It has its own
Yes.
DNA sequence, if you will.
Yes. Well,
and so
no,
that's
I mean,
how they.
As far as its own DNA sequence, that would be like verbiage would be a little bit off in that, but just
Yeah, this is like I said. This is not my field. So if you're going to get
No,
off
no,
into
no,
the
no
weeds
worries.
about how they determine it, I'd be lost.
I guess I'm wondering because you know what, I'll kick back on that as well. I'll look into the mitochondrial E specifically, because mitochondrial DNA is maternally linked. As far as I know, there's not like one ancestor that like we still share specific sequencing in, even if it is like.
Well, so according to the you can go. I've read the papers. Like I said, I wouldn't try to pretend like I could explain it, but I have read the papers,
Right.
and what they're claiming is that every person alive on the planet today can trace their mitochondrial DNA to a single female that lived in Africa. Not single as in she didn't date anybody, but one person, and that's why they call her mitochondrial Eve. Then you have different families like the apes, the bonobos. They have their own mitochondrial Eve, and then gorillas have their own mitochondrial Eve. So my point is that we have nuclear DNA that we have similarities in. DNA tells our body how to build structures. So I would expect the DNA in a gorilla that tells it body how to build a hand and two eyes and a nose and a mouth. I would expect that DNA to be identical in us because it builds the same structures. Again, this would prove common designer just as much as it would common ancestor. So when I look at something that's outside of just comparative analysis, I look at the papers on the mitochondrial DNA, and it says that we go back to mitochondrial Eve. And then bonobos go back to bonobos. And then apes go back to gorillas go back to gorillas, and so forth and so on. And I would imagine that, I don't know about all of them, obviously, but I would imagine that most of your animals have a mitochondrial Eve that they can go back to, which is of the same kind of animal they are. So my point is that our mitochondrial DNA goes back to mitochondrial Eve, which was a woman. She was not an ape.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. Is that like a meta-analysis of studies, or is there one study you can point me to look at that?
There's actually a lot. There's one done in like 1980s and then the 90s. But I mean, if you can just Google it and ask it for
Okay.
the source material, and you'll find plenty of papers on mitochondrial Eve.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would, yeah, that sounds really interesting to look into. So, since your beliefs are based in biblical theory, would you say that since, bonobos and other like animal types, since they have their own, as you say, mitochondrial like origination, do you believe that like that's where the creation started, and then there's just been like species evolvement since?
Yeah, I believe God created the original kinds, whatever they was. Like, for example, I believe that He created the original dog kind. And let's just say, for the purpose of argument, that the original kind of the canine was a wolf, right? And I believe that we can then diversify from the wolf. We can get all the species of dogs that we have today. Same thing with the cow, right? The bison, the cow, the longhorn, the milk cow. They're still cows, right? They're still cattle.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering like to what like real extent that would go, because like a wolf isn't a species of a dog anymore, and so
Yeah,
like
but
original.
there's no way that I could answer that because I don't know what the limits are.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I would still say there's clearly limits. Like, right, we can take the wolf kind of animal and breed it down to a Chihuahua. Chihuahua is completely useless compared to a wolf, but we can do that. So that's testable and observable. What we can't do is take the dog and selectively breed it to get to a bird. It doesn't matter what environmental
yeah.
traits you try to selectively pick out of the
Agreed.
wolf, you're not going to get a bird out of that.
Okay, so agreed fully. When we're talking about humans coming from an ancestry of apes, and like these specifically bonobos is like where we're like most well. Actually, I don't know the ancestry yet, but I know that we're like most closely linked to bonobos. Anyways, we do have like a lot of study on that. And my experience with this is mostly anthropology, so I'm interested to know your thoughts on this, or whether or not you think it's maybe even just pseudoscience. I don't know. Let me know. So we've recognized like where we started as like a species and then became like basically into cavemen.
You talking about through
like,
the?
even before?
You talking about through the fossil record?
Yes, even before then, though, like one of the examples is like Ardipithecus becoming like one of the first bipedal species. So like we can see how the bone structures changed, and there's several of these before cavemen even, and I don't even remember like the technical term for cavemen, to be honest. I dropped that minor. I hated forensic anthropology, but anyways,
Yeah, so I wouldn't try to insult you and say that your field is quote unquote pseudoscience. I think that there are, and I don't look at it like a conspiracy theory. I think that there is a lot of really smart people, but your foundation is built on a false premise. So when you look at the quote unquote fossil record, you're doing what they call shapes and assumptions. It's a comparative analysis. You're finding something in a lower layer and you're saying it's older because it had to be in a lower layer. And then you're saying, and that come forth from the geologic column by a guy named called Charles Lyell. When the geologic column before that, people looked at it and they saw catastrophe, meaning Noah's flood. It's called hydrologic sorting. Noah's flood would because it was worldwide, it would call it hydrologic sorting. This is what created many of the different layers. And again, we know these layers are not millions of years apart because you got things like polystrate fossils that connect many of the layers. So clearly they can't be millions of years apart if you have a fossil connecting them all. But comparative analysis, like on these different bones, is literally people just lining these bones up by their shapes, and then they put their assumptions on those shapes. So
I mean,
I don't think that it's a pseudoscience. I think people they go into it thinking that evolution is true, so then they put their assumptions on the shapes of the bones.
okay, yeah. I mean, as far as like, I guess we were kind of mostly mitigating geology in that way. Yeah, this is more based on the representation of like the motility of bones. And you can have like it's not just bones themselves either. Like you can see through features where like muscles attach, and therefore
Attached to what? The bones?
yeah. No, seriously, I took what's it called?
No, I know, but you just said it's not bone. It's not just bones. We can see where the muscles attach to bones.
No, I'm saying it's not just like the structure of bones. Like, oh, this is a femur and it's shaped this way. Does that make sense?
No, I know that, but yeah, no, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree with you. But you're still looking at these shapes, and then you're adding your assumptions to them.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you that, like, I just think that a lot of science, to an extent, is an assumption, though. So when you can, like, give your reasoning to back it up is when it becomes, like, kind of, like it being a science means that it is, to an extent, based on...
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Inferences, which...
And that's why... Yeah, so we look at the same evidence and we come to two different conclusions. Like, for example, when we look at the layering in the earth, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm just saying in general, when evolutionists look at these layering, they say, wow, this took slow sediment rates over millions and millions of years. When creationists look at that, we go, wow, this is evidence of Noah's flood. So then we have to look at the evidence to determine whose assumptions, because we're both coming at it from a bias. We have to set our bias aside and say, okay, what evidence fits the model, right? What best evidence fits it? So then when I see things like polystrate fossils that go through these layers, that connect all of these layers, you can't tell me that those layers are millions of years apart, because common sense tells me that a tree doesn't sit there and fossilize for millions of years. So I've never heard any evolutionist ever contend with polystrate fossils other than just saying that this is a creationist argument. I don't have anybody contending with that. You got to explain, if these layers are millions of years apart, how do you have a tree going through these layers? And we see how these trees were formed in Mount St. Helens. And then another contention, so I look at these bone beds, the dinosaur bone beds, like the Morrison Formation, the Hells Creek Formation, that literally goes from Mexico all the way into Canada, all the way across the United States. This is one graveyard. So the evolutionary contention is that these animals unalived one at a time in many, many, many different flood events over millions of years. Okay? The creationist contention is that no, this was one flood event that laid them down, and then sediment washed over them at the end of the flood as the water started to recede. Okay, what evidence fits the models the best? My contention is that the flood model clearly fits better, because I can see things like soft tissue in dinosaurs. I can see DNA fragments still in dinosaurs. I can look at the bone beds and go, okay, this is what happens in a flood. It sorts these things out. Dinosaurs were egg layers. Not every single egg layer, but a lot of egg layers are maternal, meaning that they hatch, they sit on the egg, they hatch the egg. You can see with some of the hadrosaurs that as the water was rising, they didn't leave their eggs. They stayed there and unalived and they drowned with their eggs, meaning that they were very maternal over the eggs. Now, snakes is different. They lay an egg and then just keep going. They're not maternal. But we cannot, I would not believe that every single dinosaur, like the hadrosaur, clearly, they were maternal, meaning that they reared their young for some period of time. So why is it on rare? It's not impossible, but very, very, very rarely do we ever find adolescent dinosaurs with the adult dinosaurs. Why is that? My contention would be is because the baby dinosaurs couldn't keep up with the adults as the water started to rise. So that's why they're completely separate in most of the boneyards. This is why a lot of the dinosaurs like the Dracorex, They think it might be an adolescent Pachycephalosaurus, but they're not sure. This is why you have two different classifications of Dracorex and Pachycephalosaurus. If you found them together, you would go, okay, this is clearly an adolescent, but they're not found together. And I think the reason why they're not found together, and you find a lot of these dinosaurs of the same body density type, is clearly this happens in a flood. It unalives things and then it sorts them out. We see this in floods today. That was kind of a long explanation, but that's
yeah,
my
no,
contention.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. So why could it also, if I randomly leave, I'm expecting a call, so sorry about that. But why couldn't it be, instead of like a flood, that the adolescent dinosaurs were unalived by like a different type of natural disaster, like we were saying?
It could have been, but so you got like the Triceratop, right? The Triceratop unalived on its side, if it unalived and it falls over, it's going to be what, 5-6 foot tall just on its side. So if a Triceratop, and the contention of the evolutionists is that these things unalived in a swamp and then they were covered up by sediment. You have to have rapid sediment burial for fossilization, because obviously if you don't, then the organisms are still going to remain, and they're just going to eat the dinosaur away. There's not going to be nothing left to fossilize. So if some of these dinosaurs, like the hadrosaur, were maternal, then if they unalived in a catastrophic event, like a landslide or something, and we do see this, it's not ever happened, but it's rare.
Understand how fossils
It's
are
rare.
created. You don't understand
So,
how fossils are created.
I've never
been
I
able
don't
to
understand
have
how
a sensible
fossils are created.
conversation with anybody.
I haven't either, and the reason why is because they come up, think that they are in charge of the conversation, and interrupt the conversation. That's probably why you can't have a sensible conversation, is because you're extremely rude. So if you're looking to have a sensible conversation, then you should be sensible in yourself, and then that way it'll be a sensible conversation. Like me and this young lady is having a very sensible conversation.
Yeah, no,
So
I
anyway,
think that this is giving me
I
a lot of-
would expect that there would be some baby dinosaurs with these adult dinosaurs sometimes. And now it does happen. I don't want to say that they've never found it, because clearly they have. But my contention would be that I think it should happen a little bit more. It's not a deal breaker. I just still think that in a flood they would get sorted out by body density type and things like this. So I think it fits our model better. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, actually, yeah, that last point, yeah, that's an interesting take on that. So I might have asked you this already, but just to circle back now that we've like addressed kind of the remainder of everything, for evolution to happen, like from a common ancestor, and when I'm saying common ancestor, it's not like based on species, it's based on like I'm thinking of like to humans it would be apes type of thing, or for like reptiles, or for like chickens it would be dinosaurs, or like something like that, like that would be the common ancestor. Do you believe that like that type of genetic differentiation has to have addition, or could like the exchange of information result in evolution?
So degradation could be part of evolution if evolution was true. I just don't think it can be the standard to show that evolution, obviously.
What do you mean?
If genetic information, losing information.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, degrading, losing information. I don't think that could be the standard for evolution. I understand the evolutionary theory. People think I don't. I clearly understand it. They're saying that if it doesn't need it anymore, it's not like the flagellum for the bacteria that the young man was talking about earlier. It doesn't need it anymore, so it's not advantageous for the organism to keep it. I understand that. Right? It doesn't need it anymore. That's not going to get that bacteria to turn into a bird, though. I'm using birds as an example, but it's not going to get that bacteria to turn into anything other than its kind by losing all of its information. Eventually, so the theory of evolution says that, you face a new threat, an environment or pressure or something like that, and then you adapt to overcome it. If all of your adaptations is losing information, eventually you will go extinct and you will become the highest form of evolved. And obviously that doesn't make any sense, right? So I need to see genetic information gain. And clearly my standard is it needs to be testable and observable and not inferred, right? You can tell me that genetic information gain happened long ago and far away, but it doesn't do me any good if we can't observe it or test it.
What about, you heard of, I think this was Darwin originally, but the beaks of the specific bird type on something.
Yeah, Darwin's finches.
Finches, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So the way that they gained the larger beak size to be able to eat the specific seeds, do you disagree with that?
Well, are you familiar with the new study that they went back and done on the Galapagos Islands and showed that the beak size is not quote unquote evolution, it's adaptation to the rain? It depends on how much rain falls.
I mean, adaptation though is that's how evolution happens, is adaptation to your environment.
If it's true, so when Darwin went to the Galapagos Islands, he saw finches and he hated birds for some reason, so he unalived them and he studied them, and he noticed that some of the finches on different islands had different shapes beaked, and then he came to the conclusion that because they have different shaped beaks and they're all of the same species, if you will, but because their beaks are different shapes, that must mean they had a universal common ancestor. I would agree with him that they had a universal common ancestor, but it wasn't a single-celled organism. It was a finch. It was a bird. Darwin got the wrong conclusion from that because we went back now and we've actually studied Darwin's finches. It's not, so the evolution of the beak is not taking them anywhere. It literally just depends on the rain. If there's a lot of rain, then the nuts are softer to crack, so the finches have smaller beaks. If there's no rain, meaning a drought, not no rain, but if there's a drought, the nuts are drier and harder to crack, so the finches produce a harder beak. That's just like saying when it's cold outside, the dogs have a thicker coat, and when it's warm outside, they have a thinner coat.
Right.
That's not going to get you to another kind of animal just by, and clearly it's within the genetic code for that to do that, so it's already there. That's not evolution.
Okay, so we're not viewing them as different species of finches then, we're just viewing it as, basically my dad had a big nose, so, my grandma doesn't have a big nose, but I have a big nose because my dad had a big nose. Like that type of thing, it's not different species.
Yeah, that's micro, yeah. Yeah, that's micro. I mean, I would grant that the beaks change, but that's micro. That's not going to get you to turn into anything other than a bird.
Right, but being able to adapt to your environment kind of is the basis for macro evolution entirely.
What? Now, I understand. If macro evolution was true, then the mechanism to get you there would be micro. But I should still be able to test and observe it because evolution's not time-based. Time is a factor, but it's not time-based. It's generational-based. So why is it that when we have bacteria that can have up to 9 generations in a single day, so we can observe, like the Linsky experiment, we've watched over 80,000 generations. In 80,000 generations in human, this might be your field. In 80,000 generations, we went from an ape-type ancestor to a fully functional human-type ancestor. In 80,000 generations, according to evolution. So why is it when we do the same amount of generational counts in bacteria, we get degradation? So why is it long ago and far away, all this information gain happened, but when we test and observe it, we don't see it? It's like the double slit experiment.
Well,
the moment you observe it, evolution stops working.
It's dependent on the environment, really. So humans, the theory is, when we're talking about from apes to humans, the bipedality, the reason that there was a change from quadruped to bipedality was the quadrupeds are able to run faster, but vitality allows for stamina and being able to run for longer. So eventually, like it is all about just outdoing your trying not to become prey. So to some extent, like whoever we were being hunted by, we were able to evolve into a new becoming and not outrun.
Yeah, but because bacteria replicate so fast, we can replicate. Like we can change the environment. We can try to have different environmental needs in an effort to try to make them evolve. So, but regardless, all we see is degradation. We don't see information gain. And to the comment down there in the thing that I'm seeing, micro and macro is a thing. The terms were created by evolutionary biologists. They just don't like it now because it doesn't fit their narrative, so they try to change the definition in an effort to get a win. But micro and macro are absolutely a thing.
I mean, as far as the Linsky experiment, though, like that is analyzing bacteria. So, like, yes, they're only observing degradation, but they are also only observing bacteria. So, and also, if I'm
But yeah, it's single, so you should be able to see it a lot faster.
Well, that's an entirely different genome, though. And am I incorrect in saying that it's not only degradation, like it is also mutation and exchange, so, right?
Yeah, but that's all we see is examples of degradation. So if we, I agree with adaptation, that would just be micro. But I don't see any genetic information gain. And then I had somebody wanting me to really name him or her. Okay, so I'm going to spell this because it's a German name. Yuri Filipchenko, Filipchenko. He coined the term micro and macroevolution in this name of this German book. I'm not going to try to say the name of that because it's got little symbols over it. And again, it's in German, so I wouldn't know how to say it. But he wrote the book in 1927. His student is a very famous evolutionary biologist, Theodosius Dobzhansky, Dobzhansky. Now, Filipchenko is the one that wrote it, and he wrote it in 1927. And then his student that he trained in biology or whatever, he was one of the fathers of modern day evolutionary synthesis, and he actually brought it to the English language in 1937. So there, I've supported my claim. So it is a term, and it was created by evolutionary biologists. So when I love it when people say that micro and macro is not a thing. Yes, it is.
They seem like they know about evolution, though. If they wanna. But,
Yes.
where were we at?
You have the.
Okay, so I'm struggling in order to understand why the like I understand that degradation wouldn't be degradation versus addition, but that's just not all that it is. So I'm struggling to understand like why exchange of information isn't taken as seriously for evolution as anything else, because like
because exchanging information. Exchanging information is designed. We see horizontal gene transfer. We see bacteria that do this, and they do that. They've always done that, and so far they haven't produced anything new. That's within their genetic code to be able to do that horizontal gene transfer.
What about GMOs? Because I mean, a lot of people imagine that GMOs are like chemicals that you're sticking like a syringe into a watermelon or something, but it's like crossing genomes of plants. It's crossing species. Sometimes it's an insertion plasmid vector, but it is of another plant. Like it is a genome that we have like from another species or something. So doing that, like
another species, yeah, but it's still the same kind, if you will. My grandfather is he owns an apple orchard, and he actually teaches a class on grafting, if you will. And he talks about Granny Smith and all that. You got all these different types of apples. And you got, Golden Delicious, Red Delicious, Sweet Delicious. You got Granny Smith, and you got all of these different kinds of apples. So if you walk out to his apple orchard, funny enough, if you walk out there right now, you might have one row of trees with red apples and another row with trees with green apples. And we can deliberately manipulate those to get a different quote-unquote type of apple, right? You can genetically engineer these by just pollinating them and controlling that. And he does that, and he teaches college students how to do that. That being said, they're apples. He cannot take those apples and genetically engineer them into an orange. And the reason why is because they're different kinds. They're not compatible.
Yeah, that's not necessarily. It's not really the same thing though. It's the same way that like a horse and a freaking donkey is a. I don't know. Whatever the. You know what I'm talking about?
So is your question though, if we could do this artificially with humans, or we have? My answer to that would be, let's say they created, I talked about this spud cell yesterday, and it's not life, but let's just imagine for a moment that they actually did create life in the cell. What would that prove? Or they created a cell in the lab. They created life in the lab. What would that prove? It would prove that it takes intelligence to create life.
Okay. But or does it take intelligence to create life, or does it understanding how life is created requires intelligence? Because I mean, when we're talking about crossing,
I think both.
When we're talking about crossing plants, like this could happen with a very long time in nature. We're just kind of speeding up the process to make like there be no freaking seeds in the watermelon or something. Like we just know what to do and what to put in it.
I don't want you to take insult to this, because I don't mean any insult to it at all. But when you said this could happen if it was just given enough time, do you see how you left science, testable and observable, and now you went off into faith? You choose to believe that, but can you back that up and support that? Yes, if given this enough time, this will happen.
Well,
I need that supported, not just claimed.
I understand your point. Evolution in that way has been observed through several generations. So I guess I'm meaning like for us to be able to make, I don't know, rice water resistant, or like flood resistant, or watermelon seedless, or something like that. Just speeding up the crossing process. It's like they're able to reproduce with one another, right? So like it's possible in nature, but like due to our studies,
what they're able to reproduce with is their same kind. Like I said, apples with apples and oranges with oranges.
Right.
Citruses with citruses, right?
I'm not expecting us to have like a baby with a dolphin anytime soon. Like that's not what I'm trying to prove. I guess.
Well, B, listen, let me ask you this, because you're very smart, you're educated on the topic. And so I told the other guests why I do this. One is I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians. And two is if you're not saved, I want to try to get you saved and tell you about Christ. So what do you know about Jesus?
My honest answer is that I grew up extremely religious, and then I moved to the South, experienced Southern Baptist churches, and have been struggling since, I guess. So that was like 8 years ago.
Well, I'll say this as a very flawed individual. I do pray that God gives me patience, but sometimes I don't represent that very well on here, because I am a human, and sometimes maybe I act out of character when I shouldn't. So please do not judge Christianity by the Christians. That's why we have a book and we go to Jesus, because if you're judging the religion if you're judging it off of me, I'm a flawed individual and I'm not going to represent it very well at all. Right. I do my best, but I'm clearly going to fall.
That's a great point. I think that originally what really
kept me drawn to Christianity was like specifically was the community though. It was like my work was based in it, and yeah. So losing that really jarred me a little bit against the church.
Well, hey, this could be this could be God calling you back. I think it's time to come back home.
I'm interested to talk again. I'm gonna look into several of the topics we discussed, like mitochondrial and everything. Yeah, I love talking about like DNA, especially evolution, stuff like that. So I'll definitely be back. I gave you a follow. I'll follow up eventually. But
All right. Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming. Give me a follow, and if you have any questions, especially about Christ and the Bible or anything like that, then hit me up. I mean, you can hit me up with these science questions too. I might not be able to answer all of them, but I'll do my best.
of course. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. All right. That's two good conversations right in a row. So I better be careful, because usually it's I never hit a home run and get 3 in a row, but I might. I know you say, like I said, macro and macro are not scientific terms used in the field. Yes, they are. I literally just showed you that they were made up by scientists using them in the field. Now, you can say that modern scientists, they try to get away from that. And yes, they do. They try to get away from it because they don't have any... If they could prove macroevolution, I promise you they'd go back to using it. And some of your most famous... Richard Dawkins, some of your most famous atheists use these terms. So when you say that they're not used in the field, it's just embarrassingly wrong. Yes, they are. They have entire books written about it where the titles are macroevolution. Or some of their chapters in their books are macroevolution. So you showed nothing. I literally gave you the source. Paul, it's probably better you stay down there in the comments, because if you come up here, it's just going to be embarrassing. Because I literally gave you the source. Now you're just giving me nuh-uh. Yeah, I showed you the books that was written, gave you their names, told you when they come to the United States, when it entered, and your whole argument is just nuh-uh. That's not true. I don't like it. I don't like it. You got to contend with the argument. You can't just say nuh-uh. Nuh-uh is not an argument. That's what people do when they get backed into a corner. I would encourage you not to stick with this. Micro and macro are not specific terms used in the evolutionary field. I can go to atheist to atheist to atheist in the field of evolution that clearly use these terms. This is what evolutionists do, guys, when they don't want to contend with the argument or show any evidence. They try to get a definitional win. They don't. The reason why they're fighting, let me show you guys. The reason why they fight so hard now to say that there is no such thing as micro and macro evolution is exactly what Paulus stated earlier. There is no micro, there is no macro, it's just evolution. So that way they can show you, look, I can take a dog and I can select these traits and breed it down. Therefore, we all come from a single cell organism. There you go. That's what they're trying to say. So they want to give you examples of micro because they can't give you examples of macro, and then force you to try to believe that through a definitional win. But you know, here on my page, we're not going to allow that definitional win. You're actually going to have to contend with the argument here on my page. All right, guys, if you have any additional questions, now would be the time to ask. If not, then we'll start to wind down. But if you have any additional arguments, anybody want to have a conversation, bring it up. Spell the names. Yuri Flipachico, I said his name earlier. Y-U-R-I. Last name, that's his first name. Last name is F-I-L-I-P-C-H-E-N-K-O. And he coined the term macro and microevolution in his book. I'll spell you the name of his book because it's got those little hyphen things on it. IABILITAT. And the A has the two little dots above it. That's the book that he wrote in 1927. The student that brought it, his student, because he was the professor, he was a professor at what is now called St. Petersburg's State University. And he helped to establish, this is about Flippicino, he helped to establish Russia's first genetic programs. He worked during the period when scientists were trying to understand how Mendel's discoveries about inheritance fit with Darwin's theory of evolution. This is what he worked on. So when you say, when I said evolutionist, a biological evolution or evolutionary biologist come up with this term, you guys are just so misinformed about this stuff. Y'all read an internet argument and then you try to contend, and Google just makes y'all look so ridiculous. He trained several important geneticists, including Theodosius. This is the guy that brought it to the United States. His first name is Theodosius. I'm not going to try to spell or say this last name, so I'll spell it. Dobzhansky. That's the. He later became one of the antithesis for the modern evolutionary synthesis. So he's one of the founding fathers for this type of evolution, if you will. And he brought it into the English language in 1937, which is 10 years after the book was written. So, you guys, these are not evolutionary terms used in the field. Yes, they are. It's just that modern evolutionists, there was actually a consensus, if you will, or how do I say that? There was a meeting amongst some of the most prominent evolutionists in 2016 that actually discussed exactly what Flippicino discussed back in his day, where they're trying to come up with another explanation for evolution. I don't want to pretend that I'm saying something that I'm not. They're not creationists. They still believe in evolutionists, but they thought that Darwinian evolution is just not the mechanism that works, right? So they got together. The reason why I don't usually bring this up in my debates is because they didn't come to any conclusion. They're still using it. So part of the people in the meeting agreed, part of them didn't. So there was not any change that I can find about the meeting. It's just that they convened this meeting to talk about some of the complaints that Darwinian evolution wasn't getting them the results that they think they should have, obviously. So, said all that to say this: micro and macro are absolutely a thing. Now you must go read the book. I've literally explained several times in here how micro and macro. And Caleb, you've been listening from the beginning. Come on. I've explained micro and macro, and I've given my definitions for that plenty of times. So if you're unable to follow, then I can't help you. They can't. I've literally defined it. I'm going to define it for you one more time. Genetic information gain. Macroevolution would have to be genetic information gain. Genetic because you got to pass it on to your children. New information as far as new structures, new functions, new code, and then obviously new DNA. And obviously it has to be gained from something that wasn't there before. I say it so many times during these debates that you should have it tattooed on your eyelids now. How you could be in my live this whole time now for hours. I've been doing this now for 2 hours and 34 minutes. You've been in here the whole time as far as I can tell in the comments, and you don't know that I constantly define that. That's ridiculous. What do you listen? It's best like people like you stay in the comments, because if y'all come up on this stage, you're going to get thoroughly embarrassed because you're unable to follow. I have to define the terms 50 times in a conversation, and y'all still don't get it. Still don't get it. All right, guys, listen, to everyone that gave support, I do appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. I had some big gift givers today. I thank you for that. I put it right back into the ministry. Again, I never asked for money, but I do want to make it a point at the end of these things to make sure that I thank people, because sometimes I don't have the ability to thank them right in the middle of it. Hopefully when I get a little bit bigger and I'm able to do this and stuff on YouTube, possibly, then, you see these guys, they're able to take super chats and they stop and they can read them. TikTok doesn't have that ability. So when I'm in the middle of the debate and I see somebody give a gift or something like that, then I appreciate it. It doesn't go unnoticed. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I do appreciate it. And it goes right back into my ministry here. This takes a lot of studying. It's not really hard as far as technology is concerned, but it does take a lot of studying. And I do appreciate it. Thank you to everyone that supports the channel. I hope that that God gives me the knowledge to either strengthen your faith. This is my prayer, that I want to strengthen the faith of the Christians, or that I might say something to the lost that would bring them in to the fold. Not every conversation is going to be nice. Sometimes somebody might be brought in because they hear both sides of the argument. So that's why I even, and I think it's fair that I allow people in here that vehemently disagree with me. As long as they follow my rules, then they're free to stay, right? And we saw that today, where I had two individuals in here that clearly didn't agree with me, but they were a great conversation. And I hope you guys were able to hear both sides of it. I can see, Caleb down there, and I can see Paula. They probably don't agree with the dating techniques that we talked about with radiometric dating. And I've seen some people in the comments that said this was just a little bit too advanced for them, and they didn't like the conversation. But sometimes we need to go to there. Sometimes we need to go into that more advanced talking to show that we can contend with the arguments. So I hope y'all heard both sides of it. And hey, maybe you think that I didn't do a good job, and you think that the radiometric dating leans to the evolutionary side. That's why I allow those individuals up too. But maybe you heard my contention and said, no, you have to. I clearly don't think he had an answer for I use the candle analogy, but I'll let you guys be the deciding factor on that. Maybe you heard my side of it and you're like, you know what? I think that this creation guy's making sense. It's not my theory. And therefore, I'm going to come to know God. Maybe it'll start making them look into the Bible. And that's why I do it. So I do appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. And for Paula, you think I'm wrong. That's fine. You're free to think I'm wrong. You have been in here in this live the whole time, and I appreciate you being in here and engaging with the comments. And hopefully I'll plant a seed in you, Paula, and I'll pray for you. Hopefully that seed will be planted to where you'll come to know Christ. And that's my contention. So keep watching me, keep disagreeing with me, and come back day after day. And hopefully one of these days I'll be able to plant a seed that will go on good ground. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And as always, Mr. Allen, you get the last word.
Yeah, like I told you before, keep me in your prayers, and Miss Barbara, and we've been sitting around all evening trying to figure out what we're going to do with her granddaughter, if something happens to her. So keep that in your prayers also, because, it's not looking too good for her. And I had my test today, and I'm not really feeling too good after that test. But keep me in your prayers, and God bless you, and keep doing what you're doing.
Amen, brother. Thank you, sir. All right, guys. We'll definitely say a prayer for you, Mr. Allen. Thank you.